Miss your Weatherall. What's happening, mate?
Man, I've been busy lately.
You have been?
I have been.
When was the last time we saw each other, do you reckon?
Was it in California?
It might have been Parla.
Yeah.
And that was a long time ago.
I know. I miss my dirt bike.
It's weird how the time can go so quickly and you don't really think, like, I don't feel like that was probably 2013, 14.
Yeah, I reckon so.
But that, like, it doesn't sound right though, you know what I mean? But when you say it, like, that's a really long time ago.
But we've both been busy, But at the same time, that's like when you're friends with someone and it feels like there's no time has gone in between the time that you've seen each other, then that's when you know you're kind of on the right track with someone.
Yeah,
I think.
We were talking about that with, do you know Sam Moore?
No.
Oh, he worked, he's worked for everyone. But he started, you know, Fist Gloves?
Yes.
Yeah, so he started Fist Gloves.
Ah, okay.
So he was like, me and him when we're both the same age.
Yeah.
So we both started doing the MX Nationals thing at the same time in like 07.
Yeah.
So that's how far we go back. And like, I don't see him ever.
Yeah.
Until, well, he's on the Goldie now. But yeah, just the same deal. Call you up. Like, he called me a couple years ago. He's like, is it your birthday? And I was like, yeah. And then he's like, oh, cool, man. I'm in California. And I was like, oh, sick. All right. Well, yeah, just let me know. Like, I'm just in Huntington. And he's like, yeah, I'm in Huntington. And I was like, what's sick. The odds? Yeah. And then, dude, but then it gets even weirder because I said, I'll text you my address then. Like, he's like, I'll come over for a beer. Yeah. It's 200 meters down the road. He was across the road and down like 5 houses.
How did you guys not just bump into each other in the street?
I know.
Previous to that.
Yeah, it was heavy. That's funny. But yeah, I feel like we got a bit of that.
For sure.
I wanted to talk about the story of like how we met. That's like the ultimate gypsy tale ever.
It is actually. We just finished up skydiving down at Byron this afternoon, and I was riding home with one of the boys, and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing this afternoon?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to go do a podcast." He's like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "Man, you wouldn't believe the story when I met this guy." I was like, "It's the craziest story." And I filled him in on the story. He was like, "No way." It's funny how things like come about.
So we got to tell the story.
Well, clearly, do you want to start things off, or am I going to start things off?
No, what's your account? Because it would have been fucking weird for you.
Yeah.
Like, for real. Like, it wasn't weird for me. It was probably way weirder for you.
It was funny because Harley, I was going to go down in the afternoon to the Australian Pro Wakeboard Tour at Port Macquarie at Stony Park, and I was getting ready to go in the afternoon, and Harley's like, "Hey."
Holly Clifford.
Yeah, Holly Clifford. Yeah, correct. He's like, "Hey, I got this buddy, Jason. His car's broken down, or like there's something going on, and he needs a lift down to the event." And I'm thinking, oh,
sounds pretty shit.
I'm like,
because it's like an 8-hour drive.
I was like, well, I'm already all set to go, and now I'm gonna have to wait, and then I don't know. I've never heard of this kid, and I feel like I know everyone in the industry. So it's like there's always weird if you don't know. I haven't heard your name before. It's never come around. He's like, yeah, I've been doing a bunch of stuff with this guy. He's really awesome, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to babysit. Like, am I gonna get some weirdo or whatever? And then we finally meet and jump in the car with me, and we ride down. And it's like, now we're new best friends, and we're staying in a hotel together. We pretty much don't leave each other's side the entire time for the contest.
Yeah, we were like, oh, it was because what happened was I was supposed to ride down with Harley, and then I get to Harley's house when he said, and Harley's probably like 14 at the time. Yeah, so he's just a kid, and then his cousin or something was like, oh, I want to come. Yeah. So then Harley didn't tell anybody that. I was supposed to be coming because he's 14 years old. He hasn't really got logistics handled. Yeah. And then so he's like, oh, but you can go with my buddy Jeff, and I was like, oh, sorted. So I just cruised with Harley all day, and then we end up getting in the car. It was like an 8-hour drive down to Port Macquarie, and then solid drive. And then by the time we got there, we're like, no, we're fucking mates. Like,
it was funny. It was funny. I do like situations like that in terms of. You never know where it's going to go. And then look at us now, like how it's been, 8-10 years? Yeah. Or more?
Man, I want it. That probably would have been like 08 or 09, I reckon.
Yeah, for sure. And,
but we just ended up being thick as thieves, eh? And then it's crazy because we've even got other weirder stories of so I go to a fucking rock music show and I'm backstage, and then they're like, the band that I was with, Issues, is like, oh, hey, meet Dave. He's the owner of our record label. And I was like, g'day, Dave. How you going? I'm Jace, blah, 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 blah. And just small talk. What's happening? Blah, blah. Like, what are you into? He's like, oh, I just got back from the Philippines doing base jumping. And I was like, my friend does base jumping. Like, just completely random statement. And he was almost like, it's the same thing as like, it's base jumping's even smaller than wakeboarding.
Well,
like,
it's probably like of all the action sports communities, it would be the smallest and probably tightest.
Yeah.
In terms of the least amount of clickiness and the most amount of like everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty awesome actually.
So yeah, Dave's like, well, let's see if this kid's fucking full of shit or if he actually knows a friend, like if his buddy is a base jumper.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, who's your mate? And I was like, oh, Jeff Weatherall. And he just fully like white in the face, like
it was like I was just with him.
I was just with him.
Just with him in KL. Yeah, I think we did a trip to Malaysia for. They do an event every year off the KL Menara Tower. And it's like kind of looks like the Sydney Space Needle thing that they got going on, and they let us come and jump out there every year. And yeah, we'd met and hung out there and travelled all through that area and did a bunch of jumping.
Yeah, so that was like I've just got. It just seems like, yeah, you're just like one of my mates where it's always this super random, like 6 degrees of separation. Like
I do like that.
Yeah, I did this with Jeff. I did this with Jeff. I did that. And that was just like, oh, I was with him. Or, yeah, I couldn't believe it, man.
Because, like, especially, well, like, I just get into so many different areas of sports and I'm never stopping. Like, I'm always like, oh, I've got this project over here and I'm doing this with these people over here, that I do end up having a pretty good like vast network of people all over the place.
You were doing stuff with Robbie for Pipe Dream.
Yes.
And then like he's one of my like all-time greatest mates as well.
Yeah.
And then I'm like seeing you with Matt Piver.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing with Matt Piver?
This guy knows everyone.
Yeah, so but I mean I guess that's like me and Sam were talking about it the other night, is that it's just an industry. Like, you know, so many people think about like, oh man, I'd love to make it in that industry. I'd love to work in that. Like, it's literally like the coffee industry or the wine industry. Like, if you want to get into the wine industry, you just need to get a job at a winery.
Totally.
And it's like, if you get a job for, like, let's say Body Glove. Like, say your dream is to meet Holly Clifford. Like, you're this obsessive wakeboarder and you want to like get in the scene. Yeah. Start working for Body Glove in the warehouse and you're in the industry. You know what I mean?
And you'll meet him.
But and then it's like, it's so I guess, I don't know if clicky can be like a negative word. I don't know. Yeah. But it's like, it is kind of clicky. Like, you'll get this guy knows this guy, and then I think you'll find in this industry, like, if you are friends with somebody, then they'll be down with you being friends with a friend.
Yeah, totally.
You know, like so Aaron Rathie is a good example.
Yeah.
Of like, I needed someone to help me film, and then Harley was like, oh, I'll get my mate Aaron Rathie, and I'd obviously heard of him because of his career. Yeah. And I was like, sweet. And same thing, you know, like if your friends are friends,
you end up clicking right away. Yeah. You know what's funny, especially for me, for people that don't know, originally I'm from New Zealand, and for me coming through in the wakeboarding scene, and everything just seemed like massive.
Yeah.
Like these pros in Florida, and they're like, it just seems so big and so far away. And then I leave New Zealand when I'm like 18 and go to Florida, and like a week later I'm like meeting Everett, like, oh, this is Parks Bonifay, oh, this is Sean Murray, and I'm just like, my mind's like blowing. And then I start to realize like, this industry is pretty small. And then I start delving into stuff with the surf and then the freestyle motocross as well. And then next minute I'm like, oh, this is Robbie Madison and this is Ronnie Renner over here, and here's Brian Deegan. And next minute you've got like, oh, here's Andy Irons and Kelly Slater, and you're just like, all of a sudden it feels like what was massive, it just goes like,
it's just like the tiniest.
All of a sudden,
world.
Like it's almost like the media perception, or if you're not in the industry bubble, then it seems massive.
Well, like when you're a kid, like unwrapping a DVD that you've like waited for months to get from America, because like it's like a year later than what people have watched it in the States. And then you like pop it in your DVD player, and then you get a Red Bull, and you sit down, you're like full
just
froth.
Peek out,
Yeah, and it like that seems so far away, because like, who else do you have to relate to on TV? Is like full Hollywood.
Yeah,
so
exactly
you get that idea, but it's just literally people.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
It's awesome.
But
it's
awesome.
When
you really get in there and you find like, I had a lot of that same stuff back in the States when I first went to America. It was just like you just meet all these people and almost the trick, like I see people when they're going to get like in autograph lines and stuff like that. It's like they're looking at them and it's like someone's own. So like with Toby, right? So you can go to the Fink for Toby Price and he's like literally fucking Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And then you go to Suncorp Stadium with him to watch a Broncos game and it's just like a face in the crowd.
Yeah.
So fame or whatever is just perception. It's totally just a person. Yeah. But then I guess you reach those like upper echelons of fame where shit does get weird because they start thinking they're as famous as they are. Yeah. But I don't think anyone in our world, maybe like Shaun White or I don't know, like he's probably, would he be the most famous action sports person you reckon? In terms of like kind of Hollywoody?
Maybe. I don't know. I think if your ego doesn't get in the way and you don't blow steam up your ass, then you're probably you're not going to fall into that trap of thinking that you're bigger than you are, you know? Yeah,
for sure. But I think definitely like you get into that echelon of people where that's just natural. Like I feel like they have to go up and like experience that and then they come back down. I think everyone eventually comes back down.
Yeah, of course. So I think it's funny just you know, like I was talking about myself as a kid, just fanning out on that, and then I started to realize these just are people with skills that we like kind of put on this pedestal, and some of them you realize are really nice people, and some are just assholes, and that's just like normal. Well, some people are assholes and some people are nice people, and
which is the ones you know
when it's just a real world thing.
Yeah, that was one of the things too when I went over to the States for the first time and I was like, oh, you're a fuckhead. And you're just like, damn it. You rip all the posters off the wall. And you're like, man.
Your dreams are shattered of that like, person.
Bar to bar, 2004 Supercross. All I did was watch your shit on repeat. And now you've just ruined it for me.
But at the same time, that goes the other direction.
But exactly.
When I first showed up in Florida and I started doing these little local contests, they do this thing called the Performance Gravel Tour over there. It's kind of, if you're coming through, you can just kind of go cut your teeth, so to speak, in these local contests, but you still got guys like Sean Murray and Parks or Darren, all these guys that were at the top of the sport during that time when I was coming into it. And I remember meeting Parks per se, and I was like, oh my gosh, he was like the biggest idol. Like I love the way he rides and like I love his style and all that kind of thing. And then I meet him and then he was like so down to earth and so nice. And then I'd go to these contests and he'd be like, he'd literally take time. Hey Jeff, how you going? Like, how's things? Like catch up, and you're like, man, that like almost elevated
makes them better.
You're like, this person is just genuinely a cool person, and they're not like too big for their boots. Like, there's nothing worse than meeting someone and they just think they're so cool. Yeah. And for whatever reason, it's like, well, you can just be cool to everyone. Like, you don't have to put yourself on a pedestal. Yeah, and like a really good example of that is Travis. Yes. Like Travis Pastrana is actually better in person than he is on camera. Yeah. Like when you hang out with that guy, you're like, well, he was one of the guys where I wouldn't say starstruck, but he was a guy where I was like, damn, that's Travis Pastrana. Like I can't even remember. Maybe I was like 19 or 20 when I met him. But the guy was just the nicest dude ever. I remember DC Shoes asked me to do like some interviews with him for like the first ever Nitro thing. Yeah. So I went down there, I was by myself and blah, blah, blah. Hey, Travis, blah, blah. And I was instantly, he just made you feel like one of the boys to where I was just like, fuck, that's how it could be done. And then there's guys that do it the other way. But like you have more respect for them as a person when they are good, because it's like Travis's accomplishments like fully speak for itself. But then he's got nothing necessarily to prove. No. And then he doesn't act that way either. And then like, that makes him better. Yeah, totally. So it's like you think the dude couldn't get any better than what he is in your own, like in terms of your perception of him. Yeah. And then you meet him and he's like a fucking legend. And you're like, whoa, you just got better. Like I used to laugh like especially in like that 2000 era of, you know, especially the freestyle guys, like a lot of like heavily tattooed, big tough guys. And then you've got like Travis, kind of like dorky, funny kind of kid, but like his riding just smashes everyone by a country mile. And then like you said, you meet him and you're like, oh man, this
is even better.
This is super funny. He'll like talk to any kid, like spend as much time as he needs, like signing autographs, doing whatever. I'm like, he's definitely one of the kind of people that I looked up to myself in terms of being an athlete and modeling like after that kind of like
the off the bike behavior.
Yeah. I was saying with Danny Half's another one in wakeboarding where he's just like the most humble guy with the craziest style and just will like sit down and take the time to like have a chat to you and make you feel like like he makes you feel good about like you're like, oh my god, this person that I look up to or that I want to, you know, emulate. I love their style or I love the way they do this. And then you meet them and they're like, and they're a genuine person. There's no like fakeness or there's no tough guy stickers everywhere. There's no whatever. There's just this like super genuine.
I wonder if nowadays you just can't get away with it in the way that you could before with like
in terms of
like because of social media
so
and
PC.
shit. Yeah, well, not even that. Like I just feel like fans have to be respected. So it's like people are having to work harder for their fan base nowadays because people have so many options. You know what I mean? Like
it's funny
because I feel like so for instance, I hate blowing people out and being negative. Like I don't want to do it. But so just for a story's sake, like I met Todd Potter.
Yeah.
And I'm not like a fanboy of Todd Potter. You know what I mean? But like he's a dude that is quote unquote famous in that industry. And so then we were doing a film thing at his house with Ty Simmons. He was training for Best Whip and we were trying to make like a promo thing to get Ty into Best Whip for X Games.
Yep.
Todd was there at his house, obviously. And then he came out on this like, I think it was like, would have been 2012, right? So then he was on like a 2002 CR80. And then he's like, rides up the landing ramp. And then I was like, damn, that thing's old school. And he just turns around and goes, it's not old school, bro. And I was like, I mean, it's a decade old. Like a decade's a while, right? And then he just like fucking looked at me like I was the biggest cock ever and then rode off. And I'm like, you're an idiot. You know what I mean? Like for starters, if you want to get technical, if something's a decade old, I would call it old school. Like an iPhone 1. You'd go like, damn, that thing's old school. That's 10 years old. Yeah. So just apart from that, but I was like, man, like it was just a weird thing where that was purely out of ego. Like there was no, you know what I mean?
People will for sure just remember you by the way you treated them.
Yeah, and like the guy's probably not that bad of a dude, but I've never had 1 second of time for Todd Potter. And like, so I mean, and like Todd Potter's not tripping on me, not being his fan. But at the end of that, it's like that's completely unnecessary. And then you get a dude like Travis Pastrana who's 3,000 times more recognizable on the scale of, you know, where someone's ego could potentially be. Yep. And then he's not doing that.
I found the same in the few meetings I've had with Kelly Slater.
Yeah, right.
He's like so humble, so nice, like willing to talk and not blow people off. And then guys that are a little bit down the itch
always the guys in the middle.
Down the pecking order, that are scratching for the top. They're the ones fighting and hustling and talking shit and stuff like that.
I'll tell you off air, I got a crazy Kelly Slater story, but I'm saving it because I'm trying to get him on the podcast.
Yeah, okay.
And he's in the Gold Coast right now, and I text him, and then it's like, I'll get a bunch of replies when I'm in California, when he's in California, but when he's in earshot of like, wait, no, you could come to the studio right now. It's like, I don't know if I want to text back on that one. But he is, my first dealing with him, I was blown away.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, I want to say the story for when he does come on.
Yeah, fair enough.
Man, just something he didn't have to do. Yeah. And just went like so above and beyond to be like I was full on floored by how like the humility and the generosity of it. And like we'd never even met.
Yeah.
So I was just, you're right. Yeah. And you know what's funny too? I think that you find people that are got a super wealthy like friend, right?
Yeah.
And then you look at them and there's no ego, no signs of wealth. There's no really crazy material things to like signal like, yo,
I'm
bitch,
a badass.
I could buy the state. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like they're not doing that. But then it's like what you were saying with like the people a couple rungs lower, where it's like they might be making a bit of money, but then they've got a loan to buy that Porsche GT3, and then they're like kind of stressing on repayments, but they're wearing really nice shit, and it's like that look I'm paid kind of deal, and they're just pieces of shit.
Versus the other way around, eh?
And then, but you go back to the very bottom rung, and they're humble, and they're, because there's no, you know what I mean? There's like, well, we don't have anything to be. Front on. Yeah, well, and they're like, we don't have anything. Like, we're just trying to get by. So it's like you've got that bottom, humble, nice, generous, and a lot of times people that are super poor are super generous.
Yeah, totally.
So like when you see that when you go to like third world countries and stuff, like we're in Costa Rica. Not that that's third world, but I'd say that's low socioeconomic. And the people in the villages are just like welcoming us in and like trying to make you food and. But then, yeah, like if you'd go just knock on any door of like upper middle class anywhere and be like, hey, can we come in for dinner? Like, get the fuck off my porch.
Orange County.
Yeah. But that's my example of that thing that I'm talking about, where it's like you kind of paid, but you borrowed the money to get a Porsche, and then you live on the peninsula. Yeah. You're like hearing that one, the peninsula. Yeah. And you're just like, you're the guy in the middle. So it's like you can be humble. Be humble at the bottom, be humble at the top, be humble at the middle.
Yeah.
So we haven't even spoken really about who Jeff Weatherall is. Jeff Weatherall was a professional wakeboarder for how many years?
15 or 16 years.
And dope style.
Thank you.
And could just fucking do anything. He's that guy. He's one of those guys. And then you had like a bit of a run at professional surfing for a bit with your brother, right?
I mean, to set the story at the very start, I guess, like grew up in a small town in New Zealand, got a skateboard when I was real young. Then we got given surfboards at about 5, and after that, me and my brother were just like, we want to be pro surfers. We just lived, breathed, everything was surfing.
So the surfing come first.
Surfing was always first, always been first, like number one, always.
And you rip too, like to set the scale, like Jeff rips on a surfboard.
And we grew up like competing around the North Island of New Zealand, and had some local sponsors, and it was super fun. And then kind of just got to a point when I was about 16 years old that I got burnt out on the contest thing. Even though I really wanted to be a professional, I was just like, I just wasn't like in a good mental headspace, and ended up leaving school, getting into snowboarding, and went down to a ski resort in New Zealand. Was like, I'm really loving the snowboarding. My skills from surfing and skateboarding are really transferring. And I thought, maybe this would be something that I could do well at.
Yeah.
And I did a couple seasons down at ski resort Mount Rupehu. Became a snowboard instructor, and then I thought, well, I'll take a summer off, I'll save my money, then I'll start going to Whistler, and then I'll see if I can crack this thing. And the summer that I took off, my auntie and uncle came and they said to me, hey, you want to come wakeboarding with us? And
shit.
And I was like, nah, it's kind of gay.
Better not.
I'm like not really like very aerial aware. And I was just like surfing all the time. In my spare time, I was just surfing. I remember actually leaving the beach, and I was driving away, and I'm like, what? They like convinced me to come up. They're like, come, you'll love it. And I was like, I don't really know much about the sport. I'd been like played around behind the boat, like scurfing and that kind of stuff, and went out for a week, spent a week with them. And by the end of the week, I was like, my mind just like knew like another new board sport to do, you know. Yeah. And again, like translated skateboarding, surfing, snowboarding, and then now here we're at wakeboarding. And then I spent the summer wakeboarding, and I like picked up a bunch of tricks very quickly. Picked up a local sponsor, Ballistics, in Takapuna in New Zealand. Actually, they've been a sponsor of mine throughout my entire career.
Really?
Yep. And we still do stuff.
What do they do?
So they're Wake and Snow.
Yeah, right.
So they're just a local wakeboard and snowboard shop. And then at the time, as the wakeboard scene was growing in New Zealand, they put together a wakeboard camp. They got a couple of boats and a like lake area that was pretty amazing. We started running camps and coaching. And so the early part of my career, when I didn't really have any like paying sponsors, I'd come back from the US in the summer and coach for them. Yeah. But anyways, pre that, I spent.
So were you the first pro New Zealand wakeboarder?
Yeah. there was a couple of guys before me. Guy by the name of Gavin Broadbent was really like, he's like the godfather of New Zealand wakeboarding.
Yeah.
And then Glenn Fletcher was really the first guy to like have a crack at competing, and he had some sponsors, but never took it to like a full-time level, you know what I mean? Whereas, so I started wakeboarding and I got psyched on it, and then I realized, oh, do I want to snowboard or do I want to wakeboard? And all of a sudden I was thinking, hey, nobody from New Zealand has ever been a full-time professional wakeboarder. I love the summer. It makes sense. Yeah. Let's see how I go. I went to the New Zealand Nationals. The second time I competed at the New Zealand Nationals, I won the open division, and I was like, right.
It's on.
It's on. So I actually had said to myself, my goals in my head were like, if I go to the Nationals and I do top 3, I'll go to the US and see how I go. And if I don't, then I'll put the wakeboard away and I'll just keep on going with the snowboarding thing. And I won. And a week later, I'm in Florida working at a ski and wakeboard school, teaching, coaching, being able to ride every day, then starting to meet all of these people that were like heroes and that I'd just only ever seen on videos. And all of a sudden, next minute, I find myself in Europe doing the European Pro Tour and just kind of cutting my teeth there for a few seasons, and then turned pro, and like the rest is kind of history. It kind of ran away. Like at that point, I worked really hard. Like so many people, especially from New Zealand, were like, "You're too old. You're too old. You're already past your stage. You'll never be able to make it as a pro." But for me, that just kind of fueled my fire, really.
Yeah.
Like really just motivated me. All I thought was, okay, these guys that I'm going to be riding against have been riding their whole lives growing up. Well, so it just means I just got to ride twice as hard, which was fine by me. And certainly didn't lack the motivation to get out and ride.
Yeah, because you seem like the kind of guy that was really driven by like negative stuff.
Totally.
You find... And I think that can be a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, totally.
Because like the guy that comes to mind that has the epitome of that is Chad Reed.
Yeah.
Like, when has Chad done the best? When everyone said that he'd do the worst.
Yeah.
So, and like he takes out the insurance policy on himself. But then I think you see like the flip side of that is there's definitely a negative flip side to that if you like let that be the only thing that drives you.
Totally.
So yeah, it seemed like you were a guy that kind of was able to harness that kind of.
I definitely liked when if someone tells me I can't do something, then I'm going to be like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Let me show you. Yeah. And it can be a driving force. But I think for me, things are different now.
Yeah.
But
we just get older and wiser, you know.
Yeah, that's right. You like a lot of experience has been gained on the road traveling the world for the last 15 years.
Yeah,
which is cool.
You definitely learn a lot, and I don't think people. Oh, the beers are here.
Yes, cool.
Yeah, Rick Dog. Couple GNs.
You need to get a beer sponsor for the show, like a naming. So
I would not be mad.
Thank you.
I would not be mad at a beer sponsor. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I think we'd have to be close with the Matt Hoy podcast. Cheers.
Speaking of beer sponsors, Ballistics Wakeboard Camp, when it was running through the early 2000 years, sponsored by Corona. Those guys used to drop like pellets of beer off all the time. Like the truck would drive past the camp, just drop like a pellet stacked to the roof high, and so people coming down the wakeboard camp would be like, we'd like go on, try and make a dent at that. They wouldn't be able to wakeboard the rest of the weekend. Saved heaps of money on gas for us, but people would get super hammer timed. It's pretty funny. I can't really drink Corona now because of that, actually.
Dude, I remember. Let's move this away from electrics. I remember going the first time I went to the States. When you see like Coronas, it was like $6 for a 12-pack.
Yep.
And in Australia, it's like, I don't know, what would it be, 30, 40 bucks? So, man, we just did the same thing. We just like bought so much Corona and we just went ham on it, mate. Like we in our fridge is like Coronas and then 40 limes. And now if someone just does a Corona, I'm like, I think I might just drink something else, because you just get blown out of them.
Yeah, I'll have water.
Corona, if you're listening.
Yeah.
No, I love Coronas. No, they're still good. I would love to get sponsored by Great Northern, especially if they sent them like to the States when we go back.
Yeah, because then you'd have something that nobody else has.
Yeah, you don't. They wouldn't be.
It's a little bit exotic.
Yeah, because that's cool, right?
Exotic Australian.
The beer from up here, plus being from North Queensland too.
Yeah, it makes sense.
What were you talking about?
Anyways, we were talking about the early years of wakeboarding.
Bloody wakeboarding.
Yeah.
And I guess it was kind of like almost in its like bubble stage where like, because you had Parks and Danny and it was sort of blown up. Like there actually was some pretty decent money in it.
Yeah, there was. I looking back now, to be honest, I feel like we did get really lucky. I feel like my career was through the golden years of wakeboarding as things were, the boats were progressing, the tricks were progressing. Like there was just this whole level that was changing all the time every year.
Yeah.
And nobody was serious on tour as far as like everybody that had got on tour, everybody was making a bit of money. Everybody was having a really good time along the way. And nobody was like, oh, I'm going to bed early because we're really serious about it and stuff. It was like, it would be not uncommon to see, Brett Eisenhower or someone on the dock the next morning, like with a really bad hangover before a final heat, There's like 6 guys in a heat and at least 4 of them like maybe have a quick little puke before they do their run kind of a thing. And those years were really fun because it didn't turn into a jock sport. And then as Holly Clifford's generation's coming, they're so young, they're traveling with their parents.
And they're not allowed to drink legally.
That's the thing, they're traveling with their parents. Where's the party with all the dads?
Yeah.
As we were like, as the end of our careers were fading, we'd party with dads, and then all of a sudden these kids are now they're old enough to travel, but they're still really young. They're not old enough to drink, and I don't know. To me, like, Pro Tour now looks kind of boring.
Yeah.
Like compared to, I feel like we did get really lucky through those years, and it's different. It's changed. It's like, much more PC with the marketing and the sponsorship and stuff like that. But it's nice now to be able to sit back and
no, you got it in the golden years.
Well, I can sit back and know that I'm not going to get reprimanded by a sponsor for saying this or saying that. But like, it was a good time.
Yeah, and like it was in X Games, and there was
it was a part of everything.
Yeah, it seemed like wakeboarding got to a point where it just like really had a lull. Like it was just the sets were rolling through and everyone was pumped, and then it just went flat.
Well, I think and I was living in California at that time.
Probably the GFC time too, because like those boats are fucking so expensive.
Yeah.
And then what, you're going to just everyone live in Canyon Lake?
It did, the GFC, like so many guys lost sponsors or at least got their sponsorship halved. And then you think, someone wants to buy $100,000 boat and then they got to put gas in it and do all these extra things. It's like became too expensive for a lot of people. Whereas in the early years, it was cheap. It was cheap to run. Like even the most expensive boats from 70, 80 at
Because what was that Mastercraft thing that Harley's got to be worth now? It'd probably be close to 200 grand.
Close to 200 grand. You could buy a house for
whoa.
Like who if you see a kid rolling around with a G23 or a Mastercraft or something these days, like, the parents are rolling deep.
Yeah.
Because nobody's like, we used to, you fill the boat up for, $80 max between a whole bunch of guys. And now it's like, you'd be like 200 plus per day just to run the thing.
Yeah.
That's not including like trying to tow it somewhere and all the other extras that are included.
Yeah. And I guess that's where the whole cable park thing was good. But it just didn't seem like, again, that's such a luxury item. Like, what's there, 5 cable parks in the country?
Yeah.
So.
And cable riding was different too, in terms of style and the people that it drew to it and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. Because I will say though, man, like when I go, because I'm pretty good friends with Steele now through Harley. And then like Roxon lives on the lake there. Travis has his house on the lake. Like, that little Lake Conway kind of ecosystem is pretty crazy.
Area is sick. Well, I used to live in Lake Jessamine, just like the next one over, and that whole area is amazing.
Yeah, and I think that it's obviously like #white privilege sport really these days. Like if you're doing it, but when you look at Harley's story and Steele's story, and they're just cruising boat sets every day, and they're just pumping the sun in Florida, and
But that to me the amount of people at that top portion now is actually like dwindled into a much smaller circle.
Anyone,
Whereas during our time, the top 40 guys on the Pro Wakeboard Tour in the US we're making like anywhere between 80 to 200 grand. And like you can live a pretty good, comfortable, like it's not massive money, but you can, if you're a like 19-year-old kid and you've got a boat sponsor and a truck sponsor and a clothing deal and this and that, and you get to travel the world and you're like, make some cash on top. You're like, you feel like you're living like a rock star.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if you don't have the, like myself included, the I don't know, the foresight to maybe put some cash away. It was like really good times. Sometimes I think, oh, you know, I could maybe own a few houses now, but I traveled so much.
You were
well, it hasn't even changed now. Even now, whenever I have spare time and I'm not traveling, I want to travel more. I've got places I want to go to, people I want to see, like different things that I haven't done that I want to experience, and I kind of can't really get enough of that. I get itchy if I'm like, I spend 6 months in Australia and I'm like, oh, I need to like get out of here and experience something different.
Well, I've said it before on here, but I just have FOMO every like 24/7 because like right now my friends are at the Masters. And then it's like, but then if I'm here and like Rick's here and I'm not here, I'm like just frothing to get back home. So it's like I'm never in a place of like just chill, you know, like there's always, when you travel for so long and you meet so many people, and it's like a blessing and a curse in a way, because you want, like I have friends that I'd love to hang out with all the time, and you just can't. It's like you just get these small seasons with friends, and you know, like it's the same like with us, you know, like if we go years without seeing each other, and it's like preferably you'd hang out more.
Yeah, totally. We're not always in the same place, and it doesn't always.
Yeah.
You know what? At the end of the day, though, that whole thought and that whole lifestyle that we get to lead, like, makes me feel really, really fucking lucky.
Oh, like it's crazy.
I feel like I try and often step back for a second and look at like the things that I've gotten to do or gotten to experience just because of wakeboarding or just because of certain action sports, and I'm just like, man, as if I thought to myself now as a 15-year-old kid, like, you know, I could foresee what I've been able to do so far, I would have been like, there's no way, that's a too far gone dream. And instead now I look back and I'm thinking, man, I've gotten to meet some of the coolest people in the world, do some of the craziest things that like kind of blow my mind, even when I think back to them now. And we're just so lucky.
It's crazy too. Like, it's a lot of the peripheral people as well that you don't really like. You know, obviously you think about like those really big name guys like the Kelly Slaters, and like they're obviously super cool as well. But like, man, for example, for me, it's like Jason Baker, the dude that builds the own stream tracks. And builds like all the big motor. That guy is like the legend of all legends, you know? So it's like sometimes it's those people on the side, those like fringe guys that are sort of in the industry that you end up having like these crazy friendships with, like Jeremy Malott from Red Bull. And, you know, like there's just so many guys where it's like, it's really cool getting to like meet a Ricky Carmichael and hang with a dude like that. But there's just like so many equally as cool people. And I think it's because you don't just like get to be around those kind of people or around the industry. Like, I guess the industry has a way of like kind of filtering people out.
It definitely does.
And then so it's like if you're like a career dude in some of these industries, like sure there's career assholes, like as there is with anything, but like for the most part, you know what I mean? Like if you're driving a truck for someone, or if you're you know, like been a trainer for a long time, you're probably a pretty rad guy because
we've gotten to meet a lot of people and see a lot of things and experience a lot of things along the way, which is cool. Yeah,
you get that, I guess, like extra perspective as well that kind of traveling
the people that I find are the most open-minded and kind of like learned are people that have like done heaps of traveling.
Dare you say woke?
I don't want to get all like spiritual and yoga in terms of like the language that I'm going to use, but yeah, people that kind of have a perspective that is, you know, really open-minded to all sorts of different people and cultures and stuff are the people that have really traveled, and people that, you know, someone that's like been in some small town somewhere and has never been or gone anywhere. They're the ones with maybe a potentially really racist or ignorant kind of point of view. And it's... A
lot of times too, it's hard to... like, you wonder how much you can even blame that a person.
No. Well, if they haven't had the opportunity, they don't know, do they? Right?
No, well, like that whole saying, you don't know what you don't know. Like it's so, that's like, I feel like if you want to get like yogi and weird and deep, that's the thing. Like that's the problem with everything. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, totally.
Like it doesn't make you a piece of shit that you were never in a situation to be exposed to an idea or taught something. And that's, I think, like, that's the problem I think that you just generally face as like people now, is like these people don't know what they don't know. Yeah, we know it. We were lucky to have something, you know, like good parent, a good mentor, a good friend, a big brother, a big sister, like somebody that got that little bit more experience that just opened it up. And then you're like, oh, okay. But you just see these people, like what you said. And it's like, it's unfortunate.
It is. It just makes me, just like I was saying before, it just makes me feel more lucky at the end of the day.
You know what I definitely, you do get jaded though. Like I'm sure you would have found like living in a suitcase and like sometimes you kind of crave a bit of normal and you, like I definitely had some experiences where I look back at it now and I was like, fuck man, that was like such an amazing experience that you didn't really enjoy because you had just a shitty attitude towards it. And it's like, I get why I had a shitty attitude, but now I'm really actively trying to be like, no, you're lucky. This is way better than anything else that you...
It's funny when you look back on things and and your perspective of the same situation changes a bit because you've moved or grown a little bit more and you look back and you're like, actually that was a pretty good time. Yeah. Oh, don't get me wrong, through the wakeboard seasons over the years, there were certain times where I'd be like, our boat is the last place I want to be. Like, fuck this. Like my knees hurt, my body hurts. I'm like not getting paid enough. I'm expecting that I should be paid more. I should be doing this. And everybody thinks the same. When you're busting your ass, you think you're trying to make it to the next level, especially when you're a competitive person. It's natural to get a bit jaded when you're like, I think I should be getting more. You see someone else and you maybe like look at their situation, you think, oh, I'm just as good or this or that, but that's like the wrong way to think about things for sure.
I mean, comparison's just such a slippery slope.
That's why social media is so bad these days. Everybody gets on their Instagram or wherever and they're like, oh, but these people doing this and that, my life's not that cool, and like all of a sudden people start getting depressed about where their life's at. When I was talking to a friend of mine today and we were talking about that and I was like, you can't, that's just like this edited version of things. I was like, everybody goes through roller coasters. Doesn't matter who you are. Everybody gets the shit end of the stick sometimes. So, but the one thing we do get to choose every single day when you wake up is the attitude that you face the day with. So, 100%. To me, that's probably the most important thing that I try and like remind myself of is when I get up, is that I get to, no matter what situation I get during the day, is that I get to choose how I react to that. Someone can pull shit on me and I can either choose to be like, fuck you, like, and be angry and negative about it, which doesn't achieve anything. Now you've just got two angry people instead of one angry person, or you can just, let it slide and move on, or,
Well, I think that there's a guy, Aubrey Marcus. I don't know if you've heard of him. He owns On It, and he does a crazy podcast. And some of his shit's way too full on for me. But there's like, everyone should listen to this podcast. I think it's called Ego is the Enemy. Can you look that up for us, Rick? I think it's called like Ego is the Enemy or something like that. But like, I'd never really thought about the ego as like a thing, right? But like everyone has an ego, but it's how you like kind of manage it. And if like, I'll get cocky about shit all the time. Totally. You know what I mean? Or like when you talk about yourself too much in a conversation, like I'm guilty of that a bunch, but a lot of the time I'm like, I'm excited or I'm trying to tell a story and it, but then like I leave and I'm like, fuck. My ego just talked about myself for, you know what I mean? So I
found that early on in my career, I go to the US and I come back and I'm just like so excited about like where things are going, and I talk to people and some people would maybe take it the wrong direction. Wrong way, like that guy is so damn cocky and thinks he's the shit. I'm like, no, I'm just like really damn excited I'm just frothing super hard.
And then people do the comparison thing because they're like, oh, so he's telling me he did all this, and then automatically they're a little bit defensive because like, Well, I didn't get a summer in America. I got winter in fucking in New Zealand. You know what I mean?
Rainy, cold Auckland.
Yeah. But like, I definitely find myself doing that. And it's like, I guess self-awareness is like the thing. Like you have to, just like you have to hand your taxes in to an accountant every year. And then like essentially you audit and you're like, oh, you're fucking broke. Or no, you're doing what, you know what I mean? It's like, you have to like audit yourself and you have to be like, because I think that about like there's an argument to be like, don't care what people think about you, and you know what I mean, like don't worry about other people's thoughts. But it's like, if enough people think you're a piece of shit, you're probably a piece of shit. So it's like at some point you've got to like slightly bridge like what you think of yourself with what people think of you. And if you're like kind of like in the ballpark where it's like there's no massive deviations, then you're probably like self-aware in a way, you know what I mean? But it's like this podcast with Aubrey, I was listening to it. I'm saying Aubrey like he's my mate. He just talked as like the ego is like this thing, and he talks about playing himself and life as like a sim character. So it's like your sim is waiting instructions. Yeah. So it's like, if you're not pulling the strings and you're not like giving the sim instructions, then that's just ego. Like that's just ego running you around, and you don't even know what the fuck you're doing in this whole game.
If you're not consciously aware of where you're trying to go, and what the decisions you're trying to make. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And so like when he said that and then I kind of would try to think about myself, and I was like, oh, that's kind of ego driven. That's driven by ego. That's driven by ego. And then you can slowly start to like check yourself, and then you get that audit process going. Yep. But then like, I can't remember who we were talking about. There's someone the other day, and we're like, man, that person's just like living with ego, like only ego. They're so, you know, when you're like, they don't even know they're doing it. Like they're that far gone. And it's like, that is their ego.
But everybody's on their own journey, you know, everybody's trying to figure this thing out.
And again, you don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
So it's like, you can't really hold a grudge. But like getting back to what you were saying about, if you blow up at someone in a situation where you've either got the choice to be like, whatever, or you got the choice to blow up, like you got to think who that serves. And I think that if you just like indulge in like blowing up at someone, road rage, like I used to fucking carry on so much in the car, and now I try like, dude,
I reckon everybody goes through that stage for a minute.
And then I'm like, the only person the only thing that serves is my ego. Like that makes me feel good. When I'm like, I would have fucked him up if he wasn't in the car. Yeah, you're just like, oh, if he wasn't in the car driving away from me right now, and you're just like, that's your ego.
And then he gets out and he's a giant guy, and you're like, just kidding.
No, and it's just like, well, do you know, like there's no consequence.
That's right.
Like it's so rare that you'd actually have a guy like pull you over. So like, I think that's why people do blow up in the car. And that's like the same as I get like Twitter trolls and shit.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Because they're like, there's no consequence. It's like fucking ego. Yeah. And they just spill their ego out, and then it's like, that makes them feel good.
If you literally don't like, I get it too. People try and talk shit, and that's one thing. Social media, it has given everybody a voice. Yeah. To feel important or to have a say or whatever. If you react to that, then people just troll you all day long.
I know.
It's like if I get any kind of like negative reaction to stuff like that, I just literally pass on by.
It's funny too, like I was in the gym the other day, the guys that I train with, and there's like 2 gyms, so I was like, they're like, are you coming to the 7, like are you coming at 7 tomorrow? And I was like, nah, I'm gonna go to the mermaid one. And all of them collectively were like, oh fucking yeah. They started like giving me shit, and then I like tried to defend myself with like intelligent shit, like, oh, I've got to work down there, I got to do this. So, I mean, it's just like logistically, and they just kept going. And then as soon as I went, yeah, fuck you guys, then it just like stopped. Yeah. So I was like, it's
because otherwise you add fuel to the fire.
Yeah, exactly. They just kept having comebacks for me, and I was just going like further and further backwards. And I was like, yeah, fuck you guys. Like I don't want to train with you. And then they were just like, whoa.
So that's like, can't say any more about that, can we?
But that's like the whole Eminem thing, like dissing himself. It's like, what do you say now,
then you can't say anything more. It's funny talking about ego. It reminds me of a conversation I had with Chris McDougall. He's probably I would consider Australia's best or most famous base jumper. Also been a guy that's been a mentor of mine since I started. And when I very first met him, I kind of knew who he was. He'd put a book out called Confessions of an Idiot. It's a really classic book of like...
Oh, really?
Yeah, really classic book of like all-time like naughty stories of just like being a derelict, getting involved in all sorts of like carnage, being just a like punk base jumper. When we first met, I said, hey, like really interested, I've been skydiving a while and really interested in getting into base jumping and trying to like figure out my way into this. And the first thing he says to me is like, oh, how old are you? And at the time I said, 31. And he's like, oh, you'll probably live. And I'm like, what? And he's like, you'll probably not let your ego make choices for you. And like when you're standing at a cliff edge and there's a bunch of boys and maybe the conditions aren't perfect or this or that, will you have the tenacity to say no to your ego? Like when your ego's like, yeah, all the boys doing it, I can do it. Like, and then next minute someone ends up banged up down a cliff and stuff like that. He's like, and I thought about that a lot. Because I thought, if I'd gotten into the sport when I was like 22, my ego would have been way too big. I'd be dead for sure. I was like, so I'm actually really happy that I didn't find this till later down the line. And now I feel like I make a much more informed decision regardless of what my ego thinks. I never think I need to do this for a camera or whatever the reason be. I've got nothing to prove, and I just do it because I love it and it's something that I love to do. And if my instincts tell me something's not right, well then I'm happy to take my gear off and walk down or not do the jump.
When did you finished the wakeboard thing, and then we can get into some of the other stuff, but while we're on the base jumping, when did you decide, or like when did the skydiving thing happen? Because obviously you can't just be a base jumper. You've got to really log some time.
That's got a story too. So
I know it does. That's why you're here.
Everything's got a story, eh? I reckon I saw base jumping on TV when I was about 16 years old. In New Zealand, I saw something about an early base jumper. I don't know. I just saw someone jumping off a cliff and then off a building. And to me, my brain was just like, that is the cool. This was before wingsuits even. So it was just strictly base jumping. And I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Growing up in New Zealand, we spent a lot of time over the summer times chucking ourselves off cliffs, jumping into like lakes and rivers and stuff like that. And I always loved that stuff. We'd spend all that, summer.
But I don't have the...
That's just where it starts. That's just where it starts. Like for me, a person that wants to push everything to the next level, that was just like cliff jumping.
That's like the next level. That's like, oh, now we're on the way. There is a staircase there. Now it's like, that's just the first one.
Yeah. So I saw it when I was about 16 and I was like, I have to do that. And then at 24 years old, I was actually in New Zealand with Rusty Malinowski, Jack Blodgett. We were on a J-Star team shoot. We used to ride for J-Star wakeboards.
Yep.
So we were on a team shoot there and...
was that the one in New Zealand?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in a bunch of movies, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I remember that.
So me and the boys had been given a bit of a budget from J-Star and we're down there and it was kind of like crappy, windy days and we were like, let's spend some of this money that we have on other fun stuff. Like we went bungee jumping and we're like, let's go skydiving. And I was 24, did my first tandem, already knew that I wanted to be a skydiver because I wanted to be a base jumper. And then consequently went back to Florida and went and got my license like right away. So I started skydiving in 2006 and then skydived all the way through till 2012, always with the intent to base jump. Like for me, the skydiving was like the stepping stone to the real thing. And then as I went, I really enjoyed the skydiving, but it was always the intent to be able to go jump in the mountains and go jump in like place. Like if anybody's ever been, anybody knows anything about skydiving, it's very regulated and for good reason because people die if they're left to their own devices, right? That for every rule, someone has probably hit the deck and there's like, you can't do this or you can't do that. And there's reasons
there's
for
like
that.
reasons why you do it.
Exactly right. Whereas base jumping is like so self-regulating. Like you either have the skills to do it or you die. Yeah. So anyway, I did spend a lot of time skydiving and then finally I connected up with Doogs. He put me onto a guy, Jimmy Pouchett from Apex Base, and went up to this bridge in Idaho, which is like a legal base jumping bridge. They call it It's called the Prine or the Potato Bridge.
Is that where like you'd see Travis and that do it in Nitro Circus and stuff? Yeah, okay.
Yep. Any like that's probably like the most legally jumped spot in the whole world, I'd say.
What's the process like of like? Can you just walk up and jump off it?
Yeah, like if
so you don't need to do anything.
That's the thing. Like if you and I went there, I could just give you a rig, or you could get a rig from anywhere, and you could literally go jump off it yourself.
How high is that bridge?
485 feet.
Oh, so you're fucked if you hit the water.
Oh,
like
yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, like
so
people commit suicide off it. People go to that bridge to end it as it is off the other side. So you got base jumpers jumping it in one.
Concrete, yeah.
Oh, totally. No doubt. So I started base jumping. As soon as I started base jumping, I actually stopped skydiving. I was like, okay, I'm done with that. Like I'm here. This is where I'm at. This is where I wanted to be. And then I did probably my first couple of 100 base jumps. And then I started to realize, like, if I want to have longevity in this sport and I want to stay alive, that actually I need to do a lot of training and probably be better.
What kind of training? Like?
A lot of it is to do with like flying a parachute, to in terms of being able to like fly a canopy very well. Just being like body aware, being able to like deal with malfunctions and situations and anything that kind of, because you think skydiving's got all these procedures put in place to make it safer. You've got 2 parachutes. You've got what's called an automatic activation device that if nothing happens, it will pull your parachute for you. You've got all these margins of error, so it like makes it like exponentially like safer.
Fail safe.
Totally. Like for me now, I think about skydiving in terms of like walking across the road. Like,
right.
To me, it doesn't seem very dangerous, but I also now have a bit of experience in it. Whereas when someone new comes to it and they do things and you're like, why would they do that? Like that's so common sense, but common sense isn't that common when you don't know what you don't know. We talk about it all the time. Now that I know things, and I'm like still constantly learning. So when I did retire from wakeboarding, I was like, what am I going to do? Well, I already have been skydiving for a while. I love it. I want to be even better as a base jumper, and I certainly don't want to die doing this. So I went and became a tandem master. So now I'm working down at Byron Bay, and the amount of stuff that I've learned in the last couple of years, it's like the more I learn, the more I realize I've got like so much more to learn.
Yeah, that's
which
crazy.
Is cool because I'm back at the start of the progression. For
the people that have never like done that, like what you think you know that you kind of don't know, like how detailed does it go?
Oh, if I started talking technical terms, everybody would be lost right away. But there's a lot of experienced guys, and there's a lot of little things that you can only learn by spending time
in the air,
being around the sport, being in the air, being with guys that have been there, done that, seen some shit. You know. So, what
was the first big like? Or I guess, what was that first one like?
It's funny. More than a few people asked me that. The first one, I was these guys, Dukes and those guys told me, you got to get 100 skydives, and then once you got 100 skydives, then you can come and learn to base jump. It was like cool. Like the day before, like I did like my 99th skydive at Lake Elsinore.
Oh, and then that place sketches me the fuck out, dude. So that's right next to the dirt bike track.
Yeah, right next to the dirt track.
So much shit,
Carnage.
like just like whoa. I'm just like
spinning
fucking
to the deck,
hell, dude.
Yeah.
Like people legit hitting the ground like super hard and shit. Yep. So that's why when you asked me to come skydive, I was like, nah, fuck no. I've seen it. And man, when I was a kid, actually, we saw, I don't know if like the person died or not, but there was a skydive again next to our track where I rode.
It's funny how skydiving and dirt bike tracks always tend to be like,
I know,
because they put the two of them together. They're out
like,
of town.
Fuck these idiots. They just got one convenient spot where the ambulance knows
the ambulance can go straight for both of them.
But like we were out at the track. It's actually Jackson Richardson's track, and we're there, and we like saw it because you'd see him all the time out at Edmonton. Just like just spinning, and one day we saw this dude come down, and we were like, he's fucked for sure. Like he hit the ground so hard, and I can't remember. It was like 11, 12 years ago. I can't remember if the guy died or not. Yeah. But I've just seen way too much peripheral shit at dirt bike tracks. This guy, I was just like, fuck that noise. Then like, but you're like,
you know what? It's not for everyone.
Yeah, dude. Amen to that.
But golf's not for everyone either, you know. Like everyone's got
Everyone's got their buttons to push.
Different passions and motivations for different reasons.
But yeah, what was that? Yeah, so that first one, you do your 99th jump.
So I did my 99th skydive, and then we drove up to Idaho, met Jimmy, and super excited. There's 3 of us from Aussie here.
Because it's been like years in the making.
Yes, years. So the first one, I was so amped. I was like, I'm ready. Like, this is good. Do the first one, cool, psyched on it. Do the second one, cool, super psyched on this. Third one, the gravity of just the whole situation kind of starts to like sink in and hit me and just be like, whoa, dude, like you're here and we're base jumping and like you could die very easily doing this if you make a mistake, like, because the margin of error is so much smaller. If you screw up, it's gonna be game over. And so the third one was like terrifying, like
standing there to jump,
just like on the edge. And I'm still like committed to. I'm like, I've come all this way. I've spent years just to get here, and then I'm like, oh man, but. I still got to do it anyways, and I love it. I love it. I've been, now that I've been in the sport like 6.5 years, and I hate to talk about the negative stuff because there is negative stuff, but I do like not like to talk about it because I love it so much. But I've had certain friends pass away, and my parents at times have been like, oh, you're going to give this up, like friends and family now? and people say that too. Oh, you're married now, you're going to give up. And I'm like, no, actually I'm like probably deeper than I've ever been in this sport, but I'm also probably more cautious and more learned and more respectful of everything. And that's funny because a lot of people ask Kayla, oh, how do you deal with Jeff jumping? And she's like, well, I know and understand the process of what's going on, first of all, very intricately. She's like, I've probably seen me jump probably about 100 base jumps all over the world. Yeah. Or she's been a getaway driver for bandit jumps at night off buildings. We've been, whether it's downtown San Diego, we've been out to Malaysia together to do the events out there. We've been to go out to Yosemite, and I've flown my wingsuits off El Cap and Half Dome and places that are like super illegal to the point where she knows like
what's the legalities of even saying that shit.
I mean, are they going to chase me from a podcast?
I mean, I don't know. Probably not, but I've always wondered that.
People always ask me, oh, what have you been up to?
So Jeff allegedly is doing this. This is a semi-fictional podcast.
I have so much amazing footage that I cannot just share anywhere.
I know. I remember seeing it.
It is a little bit devastating sometimes because there is so much like really badass fun stuff.
We need to just make like Banksy of space jumping. You know what I mean?
Well, like in Australia, there's a scene in Australia and there's a scene in other places, and there's private forums, and we'll all share like our footage of our latest stuff or whatever, like in between us, because for us too, it's also a way of like learning.
Through a community.
Exactly. But as far as the general public goes, oh man, there's so much stuff you could sell, but then I'd probably go to jail.
Yeah, that's so heavy, eh? It's like, I mean, I can definitely see why it's illegal.
It's only really mostly illegal in Australia and America, and only really because of litigation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like we go to these events in Asia, they're like, if you die, it's at your own risk. They don't even need to sign a waiver. It's at your own risk. You're here. Like, who are you going to sue? You can't sue anyone here.
You jumped off a building. You jumped off a building.
Yeah, that's right.
What are you going to sue?
That's right. Like your family should realize that if you're willing to take a risk to do something, it's the same. Like if I walk into McDonald's and I see the like floor is wet sign and I slip over and break my leg, I shouldn't think that I have the opportunity to sue them. I should have watched where I was freaking walking.
Dude, my uncle Glenn and me, we always have this thing called don't pat the tigers. And we say it about like whenever we see like super dumb shit that like, it's like, because it's called Darwinism, right? Yeah, totally. Like people should be like, if you're dumb enough to do something that kills you, like you're probably dumb enough to like, you kind of deserve that. Like, that's like nature's way of like
weeding out the idiots. It all out.
Let's keep this thing like on the up.
And that's fine by me too. Like I understand the risks that I take, and I try to mitigate those as much as possible. It doesn't mean that like I haven't put myself in a situation that potentially like could have been harmful. Like I haven't had it. I've touched wood. I haven't personally had any. There's a big bit of wood. This is real wood. I haven't had any close calls personally, but I have seen someone hit the deck, and I have had other stuff happen. I actually tried to get on an antenna to jump down near Kalsaba. So they have different types of antennas, AM and FM. So FM antennas are fine. They got little satellites on them. The stuff goes out of the satellite, so it's no big deal. And AM antenna, so they got the big guide wires off it. The whole thing is a circuit, like a live circuit. Oh. So you got to jump off something onto it without touching the ground. Otherwise, you're gonna you basically ground it.
Yeah.
I was down in Coffs Harbour and I got a little bit of information. This one antenna was jumpable, but not really enough. And I was still like early enough on in my career of base jumping that I was like, I'll be right. I've got enough skills. I'll be good.
I feel like that's 3 words that should never get said in base jumping. I'll be right.
Yeah, I got onto this thing and I thought I'm off the ground. I'm good. I'm not going to ground this thing. And I actually was probably, I don't know, maybe a little bit further away than this. And I actually was kneeling on my knees on this platform, this metal framing, and I just put my hand out. I didn't even touch it, and it arced into my thumb. And if it had gone across my chest, I think it would have killed me. Probably the closest I've been to dying in a long time. It went down and fucking blew out of my leg. I got a hole, I got a scar.
Fuck off.
I'll show you the scar later. Blew out my leg and blew me. I was already 10 feet up. Blew me off onto my back. I'm already in my gear, and I don't know how long I was down for, but it's 5 a.m. in the morning, and I wake up in a field with cows everywhere and nobody around, and I'm just I'm just fully got fried. I stood up walking around in circles like a headless chicken for a few minutes, and then I had to lay down some more. I don't know how long for, and then I finally climbed out. I was just fuck this, fuck basing, fuck all this. I was in so much pain. I'm man down, and it for a month I'm just I never went to the hospital because I didn't think I was dying.
Yeah.
I was not dying. But for a month I was just so dehydrated.
Really?
I was drinking Powerades, drinking water.
Have you looked up what that's about?
I'm just so thirsty for a month straight. I literally feel like I fried the insides of myself.
Did you Google that shit?
No, I didn't.
Can you Google that, Rick? See if that's a thing.
It probably
just
is.
Being really thirsty after being electrocuted. I don't know. That's a weird Google search, but fuck, that'd be cool to figure out. Did you remember thinking that you were gonna die, the split second of seeing an arc, or no?
Here's what happened. I put my hand out and I was very cautious about not touching the antenna, and I remember looking up and as I looked up, everything just went white, kind of, I guess, what you'd imagine the end of your life, but I think the white was just actually that electricity going into my body. So I was just and it made the sound like a cartoon, whoa. Yeah. And then the next minute I woke up on the ground. Dude, so I was what the hell? The whole of my leg started a tiny little burn like this, and then as days went by, it got bigger and deeper and bigger and deeper until a 20-cent piece size. Yes. So now I'm really scared of electrical antenna. I'm oh, do we have to jump that? I don't want to jump that.
Yeah, don't piss on the electric fence.
Nah.
Dude, the closest that my near death experience has been is we were in Alaska, and I was in a helicopter, and we're flying over these million-year-old glaciers. So it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
To oh fuck, I'm dead. And so we go.
At least it was going to be in a beautiful place, I guess.
Dude, you know the craziest shit is my body would have just been frozen forever. Me and my camera, we would have just be would never ever ever have melted. But who knows if you could have found me ever? You know what I mean? We were ages, man. 20 minutes in a helicopter just out into in the North Pole. We were legitimately in the North Pole over all these glaciers, and in the heli. And it was the coldest I've ever been in my life, because you know what it's like when you're filming out the side of the helicopter, the doors off.
The wind is freezing.
Yeah. And you can't wear gloves. Everything's touchscreen. So I had to be bare hands, and I had all my snow gear on, wet snowboard boots, and I'm standing on the skid of the chopper, and we're just and I've got the harness on.
Yeah.
So then I'm filming and just fully zoned in, and then the helicopter, you hear the sound of it changing as it starts to really bank hard. It's and so I start swaying, and I'm the slack. I wanted to I was like, fuck, I need to grab something. So I'm like, grab the thing, and I look back, and my fucking harness is just like flapping in the wind, man. And it went from the coldest I've ever been in my life to fucking sweating bullets, bro. Like, I had to take my goggles off, and I put them, and I didn't say a word because, like, I don't know this fucking pilot. And that's like the thing that always sketched me out about filming in heli pilots. Is like, is this dude's first day, or has he been doing it for like 100 years? You just get in, they're like, all right, your flight's here.
They're always like, aren't they always like most of those guys that do that stuff, they're always like, oh, Vietnam, like helicopter vets. They're
yeah,
like
I've had a couple of them, but this dude just kind of looked like a geek. And
awesome.
And I was just...
He's been playing on
yeah,
PlayStation
he's like,
or something.
Got his DJI fucking app. But so then I'm just like, I grab this thing and I see the harness and I just start sweating, like my goggles fogged up, and I unzipped my jacket, I threw my beanie off, like I got so hot it was out of control. And then I didn't...
Instantly warm.
Oh, no, not warm, like hot,
yeah.
man. Like I was like, I have to get my clothes off hot. And so then I didn't want to say anything. I just grabbed there, and I was tripping out about my boots. Like, it's just slippery and wet, and like I'd slipped a bunch of times, like, and I had to regather my footing.
Yeah.
And then I just didn't want to say anything because I didn't want the heli pilot to be like, fuck, and like, you know, grab a stick or then like kind of throw me out. So I just like I had the red, which is like 10
Heavy.
kilos.
Yeah.
And so that's not really like a friendly weight to be like kind of moving around. So I put that down on the floor, and then I like climb in, man, with like death grip. And then I just like, I click my harness, took a couple deep breaths, and I looked at my buddy Anthony, who was behind me, and I'm just like, fuck. Like, mouthed it to him, and he's like, what's wrong?
You've been having this like life or death moment, and he doesn't even realize.
And he's like got his camera, he's like taking photos. He's like, what's wrong? And I was just like, don't worry.
Don't worry about
I'll tell you later.
Don't worry about it.
And then we land.
I nearly died.
Yeah, we land, and the guy's like, how's the flight, boys? And I was like, oh, my harness wasn't done up, until like, I don't know, 5 minutes ago. And the guy just went fucking white as a ghost, eh? And I just walked off, and I was like, let's go to the bar, boys. Because they had like this big bar out there. And I was just like, Jameson. Oh, that was the scariest thing. I mean, I didn't get the white flash between my eyes thing. I just got like hot.
Yeah.
Like burning furnace hot. And I just had to like unzip everything. And I was like, oh, I'm dead.
Well, I don't think the white flash was actually...
That was electricity.
That was actually electricity. That wasn't me like seeing the light to heaven or any like mystical thing. That was just literally like, I'm getting fried. I'm getting fried.
Did anything come up?
Not really. Nobody else lived to tell about it. So like, there's no information. I tell you what, that was when I first started dating Kayla, and I was actually driving down to Sydney, and I got down and had dinner with one of her best friends down there who lives there, but originally from South Bay area. And I told them, oh yeah, like this happened.
Were your joints sore and shit?
Nah, I was just like, no, it's so thirsty. Like I've been in the Sahara Desert for like months. I was just like parched.
So that was your most sketchy moment.
So I told them what had happened, because I like kind of needed to just tell someone to like get it off. And I'm like, don't tell Kayla. I'm like, you can't tell Kayla about that one. I'm like, I don't want her to know that. I'm like, that was pretty bad, that one.
How long did it take for her to find out? Or like, did you tell her after that?
Probably like a year or so, like ages.
Was she pissed?
No, I mean, it is what it is. Like at that point,
you're alive.
Like, like it is. But let's put it this way. Like I got lucky, and I was, like I was saying to you earlier, I was listening to a podcast of another base jumper, and he was talking about his early career in base jumping and how it was just a combination of luck and mistakes that weren't fatal that got him into the point where he is now, where he actually has enough skills and experience to make it like decision that won't kill him. Yeah, you know, and I think we're probably you go through that in the first 400 or 500 jumps, where like to get to 500 jumps is pretty good goal in the first place, and to get there without like killing yourself, or you know, because it's easy, you make one mistake and you're kind of cashed out. So it is. But I like the intense focus. Mm-hmm. I know people talk about yoga and Zen and this and that, but for me, the idea of doing something that essentially been told not to do it. Stay away from the cliff. Don't do this. Don't do that.
Yeah,
like
don't pat the tiger.
Don't pat the tiger.
Yeah.
To be able to like kind of poke sticks at the bear, but in a manner that you can mitigate. That is like just to do something that's so unnatural.
Yeah.
Like most people just think you're batshit crazy, but for me, once you understand the gear and understand the all the different parts and things that go into it, it does make it like a really intense focus. And then the feeling of just running off a cliff and everything's kind of in fast forward.
I just can't. I get like my stomach feels weird like hearing it.
The second I step off and I'm like running and jumping, and it's like if you're watching a video and someone just hit like pause, and every sense is like sight, smell, hearing, like is just like so heightened. The only other sport I've ever really gotten that from was, say, surfing like pipe when it's 10 foot. And it's just like, but there it's in an amphitheater of like people and cameras, and you've got this crazy reef at the bottom, and you like have to make it, or you could be going to hospital, and it is kind of terrifying, but in like with an audience. Yeah. Whereas this is more like such a more solo thing. But now I really love the going in the mountains with your friends, knowing that the only people that can save you are yourself. You're the person with the most skills there, and you either have the skills to do what you're doing and be safe and have a good time, or you don't, and that ends badly. So with that forethought that if things that you need to be there with the right skill set to do that, like nobody goes and climbs Mount Everest when they've like climbed in their rock climbing gym once. You've spent your like years getting to there. So I feel, and it's
like a crucible almost.
Totally. I feel the same way with the wingsuit jumping and the base jumping. Is just like, for me, I've been thinking about it since I was 16.
Yeah.
And I'm 37 now. And now I am like finally getting to a point where I'm just like, I wouldn't say I'm like comfortable. I'm just getting to a point where I like understand that I do have the skills to make a decision on whether I have the skills to be there or not. Yeah. And there's still plenty of stuff. Like I was just talking to some of the boys out on the West Coast. I'm just about to go out to the Margaret River surf event, and I was talking to a couple of boys out there. Hey, is there any stuff, big stuff to wingsuit off out there? And they're like, oh, there's this one spot, but it's got what we would consider a short start. It's got like a 5-second rock drop, so it's like you got to get going quickly. And I already know like that's out of my league. Yeah. Like at this point in time, like I couldn't safely walk up there and be like, I back myself to make this 100%. If that's my thought process, well then I'm out of my league, and that's fine. And that's fine by me. Again, we go back to ego. Yeah. Maybe before it would have been like, yeah, I'm good. I got this. But I got this is never, hold my beer.
Yeah, hold my beer, bro. Watch this shit.
That's always going to end up on like Cook Slams or fail memes or whatever, like.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't it funny that, it's almost like I say the same thing about people that, like me and Harry Bink said this, like you'll never see Travis Pastrana post an inspirational quote on Instagram. Yeah. Because it's like, who are you trying to prove? Like by posting it, are you trying to prove it to yourself that you've like got enlightenment, or are you trying to prove it to the world? Yeah. And I think a lot of times people are just trying to prove things to themselves. Yes. So like you getting up on that cliff and then potentially doing a jump that you can't do, but you're just so desperate to prove it to yourself, and I guess you like kind of wrap your self-worth in that thing. Totally. So it's like, oh, base jumping defines me, and if I'm not XYZ good at base jumping, and if I haven't performed XYZ jumps, then your self-worth is attached to that. So it's either you've completed it or you haven't. Yeah. And then it's like when you have that relationship, that's when it's dangerous.
My very first wingsuit base jump was exactly like that, to be honest. I was just like, when I first saw base jumping, it was just base jumping. It wasn't even a wingsuit. Yeah. And then wingsuiting came along, and that just even more. I was like, oh my God, you can not just fall, you can actually fly like a bird. Like every single person on this world has had flying dreams at some stage in their life. Yeah. Like you can't not have a dream about flying. And so when that came along, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the next level. Excuse me. And I'd like started flying a wingsuit and done a bunch of wingsuit jumps out of a skydive plane, as you would in the training, and in what we would consider like a small wingsuit, like a beginner wingsuit. And I had my whole goal at that year was like, I want a wingsuit base jump. And then I there used to be an antenna down near Melbourne that was the tallest structure in Australia. They used to call it Omega. It was a 1,400 foot antenna. Whoa. So I drove my truck down by myself, no mentor, no nothing, drove down there with the like sole intent of like, I'm going to wingsuit base jump. I've got enough skills. I'm good. Got up there, perfect day, perfect everything. Did the jump, like super terrified.
Yeah,
which is like, why would I be there and be that gripped? Because I was that gripped because I didn't have the skills to be there, essentially. I did the jump. Everything went perfect. Everything went as I had planned. But what I did realize was that if things didn't go quite to plan, that I didn't have the skills to back myself to get out of that situation. Yeah. So I then actually spent probably in the next year and a half, I was like, no more of that. Back to the drawing board. Like my ego took a big hit, and it was like good for me to step back and be like, nah, dude, that's not how that's going to run. Like, I want to like stay alive and I want to keep doing it. This is fun. I want to keep doing it. And so I just went straight back, went to the drawing board, like it just accessed so much information and did so much more training, and then went back to somewhere that was a much larger jump, a much safer situation, more room, more margin, and then spent the next few years getting the necessary skills to move to where I'm at now.
That's so fucking heavy that you pulled the trigger on that.
The footage is pretty cool.
I bet it is.
The mustache that I was running at the time was amazing. Anyways,
did you have like one of the cameras like pointed back at your face?
The full like.
I remember seeing the mustache. The mustache.
It's like disgusting, but.
So that you think your identity was kind of wrapped into pulling that jump off?
At that point in time, I was like, okay, I'm just retiring from wakeboarding, and I'm a base jumper now. Like this is something that I do, and this is something that I want to be really good at. And a lot of people are thinking like wingsuit base jumping is badass, and I think it's badass. And I was like, it's something that I want to do. And I'm like ready and prepared, but I wasn't ready and prepared.
You're like telling yourself.
Yeah, like psyching yourself up. And that's cool. Like if you're wakeboarding or you're surfing or doing something and you can maybe get yourself into a bit of like a deeper situation, you're going to break a leg or you're not going to die. But this is like...
The consequences are just so final.
Are like they are. They're very final.
Like this is the last fuck up you'll ever make.
Yeah. And you'll have 2 seconds to realize it, and then it'll be over.
Did that, to get a little bit deep on you, was that like a defining point of your life in a way? Or did it almost, was it bigger than the whole base jumping thing? Because it's like you retire from wakeboarding and then was there like this void that you needed to fill? And I guess because people look up to you, you're one of the best wakeboarders in the world, and then it's like that stops.
Yeah.
The industry's kind of on its way out anyway. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know, was there a bit of an identity crisis going on at that point? Did that make you rethink it?
A little bit for sure. I'm sure and I hear a little bit more talk these days about like what it's like for guys to go from being in the spotlight and being on the top of a sport to then retiring and then trying to find their feet in a different sort of a world. And for me, I was definitely, as I was stepping out of wakeboarding, and like in your 20s and like in your teens and in your 20s, you do like everything that you do, you're like, everything is wrapped in the thing that you do and in the fact that you're good at that thing.
And people like you for that, and it starts to get
versus just being a human and being a personable person and being like, people like you because like...
Or you're Jeff, not Jeff Weatherall.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So... It has taken me a good few years to try and really figure out like where I'm at and getting like comfortable in my skin. And I also thought like you go from like one day you're the world, like 2-time world champion, you're this, you're that, you get all these gigs, and then next minute you're like, Holly comes along and he kicks your ass a whole bunch of times, and he's like, not even,
and he's 8 and he doesn't even have pubes,
and he's tiny, and he's the next best thing, and you suddenly, like from 27 years old people were starting to ask me, oh, when are you going to retire? I'm like, why would I retire? I'm getting paid. I'm traveling the world. Like, even if I don't make...
Because that's probably about when we met, right?
Yeah.
It was kind of around
that's
then,
exactly right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I stretched it out to 34. So I feel like it did really good. I like milked it like for every last drop of wakeboarding. And even then, you know, last year I got to do some like advertising wakeboarding stuff for like a Samsung gig. And I've had a few other like wakeboarding things that have kind of come my way, which is kind of cool to still be able to get those things. But yeah, predominantly it was it's hard to let go of that identity, of that like self-worth that you've wrapped yourself in, and then to try and re-figure out, okay, where is my standing in the world now, and where am I going and what am I doing, and trying to reevaluate that stuff as well.
Well, dude, I remember like even, you know, like I was living in the States and when I had my visa, I was just there, right?
Yeah.
And then you'd be at every supercross race and every motocross race, and every week you're putting out these videos that all these people are watching. And on a similar sort of thing, it's like you stop making videos, or you go back and you start going back and forward, and it's like people literally just forget about the thing. You
feel like you're irrelevant.
Yeah, you're just like, what the fuck? Everyone was my friend a while ago. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's funny that you sort of do start to, you question yourself, like, oh, is that my only good because of this, or like, did these people even like me at all, or you know, like it is a weird thing. And I imagine that when you're like a 2-time world champion at something, then it's like it's then funny. You go away, that'd be magnified so much more.
Totally. And you know, like I've definitely like heard and seen of, you know, different like say rugby and other sports players that had, you know, battle with depression and stuff like that. I wouldn't say like I wouldn't say battle would be any kind of way. It was just more trying to re-find my feet. Yeah. Where's my place now, and where do I move from here? And I always wondered, okay, I've been at the top of the world wakeboarding. Am I ever going to find a thing that gives me as much joy per se? Am I ever going to find a job that, you know, I did some jobs for my parents and like project manager for different things and bits and pieces here and there as I went through that transition period. And I was just like doing jobs that like nobody gave a shit about.
Yeah.
Like nobody, like doesn't matter whether they just expect you to do your job. Doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. It's just expected to be done. And I'm like, why would I, like, I'm just doing a job for money and I don't even care about the money.
Yeah.
Like the money is just like a, you know, a means to an end. And then when I started back and started in the skydive industry, I started back at the bottom. Like I had to spend a year like on my hands and knees, like packing parachutes. And that's like the bitch job, you know? And it's the hard
ego.
And I'm, big ego hit, you know, like I go from being like world champ and
like again it's that relativity thing to some wakeboard grommies, you're Jeff Weatherall, and to these like fucking skydive dudes, you're just a dude folding their parachute.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's such a like shifting scale. And
exactly
then it's
right.
like it's only other people's perception of you that you kind of buy into a little bit.
Totally. But then, you know what, like my whole goal was like, I'm going to be a tandem master and I'm going to do this because I love base jumping and I want to better my skills. And it's something that I could think that I could do as a job that would be okay. That would be better than
fulfilling in a way.
It would be somewhat fulfilling. And then I pushed through and did all my ratings and stuff. And I tell you what, I freaking love my job now. I never thought for a second there or for a few years, I never thought I'd find something that would give me as much joy as what wakeboarding did. Being able to like wakeboarding for me, the coolest part was getting to travel and meet people that were psyched. Like so pumped on wakeboarding, pumped on the riding that you're doing, pumped on getting to meet you, getting an autograph, whatever. And then I was like, am I ever going to feel anything like that again? And then now I meet someone, they're excited and terrified
at the same time.
And I'm going to take them on an experience that they are never going to forget. I tell lots of people like that, you might forget my name today, but you're never going to forget today. Your first time you jump out of a plane, and I'm like going to be the guy that gets you through that experience. And I can make that experience, like I cater that experience for everyone differently depending on their personality. And I feel like wakeboarding has in a way like prepared me for this job now, like in terms of being able to like read personalities and how to be like super personable with someone. It's funny, you know, if I get someone that's super terrified and I can make it, you know, I put my soft yoga voice on and I make it super nice and try and make that process really easy for them. And once they do it, they like overcome this huge fear. Because for me, it's not terrifying in any sense of the word.
Yes, so routine.
I could literally do it blindfolded.
Yeah.
But it's really fun because everyone's experience is different.
Yeah.
And then you get the big tough guys that come in that are like, oh, super tough. Yeah, we're going for a skydive. We're so badass. They got all their tattoos and whatever. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to take you for a ride that you are never going to forget. Like, you think you're tough, I'm going to make you cry like a little girl.
I'm the captain now.
Yeah. Make sure the seatbelt's strapped up nice and tight. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
That's fucking amazing.
It's cool. The best is you get that big tough guy with his girlfriend and they're there and, you know,
and
like
she's
maybe
way harder
you're in
than
the
him.
plane. You're in the plane. And the girls always trust. Girls trust. Oh, I'm with a professional.
Yeah.
Like I relinquish control. I'm gonna just do what they tell me. We're gonna do it. We're gonna have a good time, and they have a good time. And guys, like they can't relinquish that control, and they have a terrible time. They're like,
dude, that's a legit thing. Like I think that's like a part of it with me. Like
there's a full ego thing right there.
Yeah. Well, I definitely like. I hate being doubled on a motorcycle because it's like.
That's terrifying for me too.
Yeah, so I'm like, motherfucker, I'll ride the motorcycle. But then I'll be like, hey, Ricky, get on the back of the motorcycle. Like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's that part of like, I don't know. I wonder if that's more, I don't know if that's as much ego as just being a dude and being used to a role of like,
being in control.
Yeah, trying to be like that dominant alpha male kind of thing. Yeah. And I wouldn't say I'm like a fucking alpha male. But there is a certain like, especially even with Rig, like I'm like, no, I'll drive. You know what I mean? Like you just kind of be like, you have that role.
That's the thing that you do.
Yeah. And then when you go with someone to go skydiving, I'll be like, fuck. I'd honestly rather just do it myself. Just be like, nah, just fucking, just give it to me by myself. Fuck you, Jeff. I love you, but I'm not doing it. Give it here. I'll do it.
I love it. I've like since I've done it, I've actually had a lot of friends say I never ever wanted to skydive. I never would do it, but because I know you.
Yeah.
And they like let me take them through that experience, and we've had like a really awesome time. Scotty Broom came out. I took him for a jump. Like I've taken a bunch of really awesome friends out for jumps, and they're just like, because I can tailor it to them because we know each other.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, like, I mean, I strap like hundreds of people to the front of me a week. So my idea of personal space, like I don't, like I can be strapped to the back of you and I'm like not, it doesn't weird me out in any way.
Yeah.
You know, like
we're tight.
We've
slept in close quarters.
Yeah, that is correct.
Dude, I remember like when Harley was coming up, because that was like, I wonder if that comp where we met was Harley's first time as a pro, or if I think he was still a junior.
No, he was a pro then.
Was he a pro then?
He was a pro then. He was right on the cusp. So there was that contest, and there was another Australian Pro Wakeboard Tour contest and Moala that he had been coming up, and we could see that he had the skill, but he didn't have the mental game to put it together. Like I remember standing on a dock at Moala, and I got him, and I was like, this kid could literally smoke me right now. Except that I'm going to like fuck with it. Like I'm going to make him shake in his boots before we even get going. Yeah. And he's not going to be able to hold it together. And he didn't.
Yeah.
And then that contest that we went to also he was like getting close. And then one day something clicks in riders and they're like,
fuck you.
Nah, fuck you. They're like, I'm going to smoke you. And as soon as they get that mental game,
it's over. You're out.
All game. Like I remember once Harley started getting on a roll. And I'm like, yeah, I said to Dean Smith, I'm like, I'm going to tap out pretty soon here. Like, I can see that we're never going to win another contest again. And he's like going to keep on going for a few more years, you know? And I'm like, enjoy second and third because you're probably never going to win again. Unless Harley's like, it's like, you see it and you're like, I'm like, I don't know if I'd have the drive and the motivation to go out and bash myself enough to try and beat him all the time. It's like a lot of training and a lot of like,
and like, man, you hang out with Harley, like even when when Rick first started hanging out with him, it's like, he's not a fucking savage. Like he's just like, and like he's one of my best friends ever, but like he's like hugging you all the time and just like, come watch a movie. Like he just wants to hang out. He's just like the nicest, like sweetest dude you'll ever meet in your life. Like, and he's, you know, when you were saying like you get those people that like really genuinely care about you.
Yeah.
Like, dude, Harley will be like, I'll be like, oh no, I can't come over, I'm sick. And he'll be like, oh, you okay, man? Like, have you been to the doctor? Like, Maddie hurt his ankle, and he's like, oh, I'll take you to the doctor. Like, do you want me to call somebody? Like, and that's like genuinely, he's that nice of a guy.
Yeah, totally.
And it's like to be a savage in the way that he's a savage, and just like perfect 100. Like,
but it's just that's just his writing doing the talking. He doesn't need to have any ego or spit or.
But even
about
to
that, cool.
like the commitment to do the tricks that he's doing, like that's, you've got to be a psycho in a way. You know what I mean?
But
you
got to think too. He has been.
It's so programmed.
Being groomed and to where he is today has been a long time coming, and we've all seen it for a long time. You know, like Bill and his parents and the sponsors and stuff have put a lot of time and effort into helping him get to where he is, and it's been a big network, like a machine behind him. Yeah, you know. So, and I saw it coming for years. I knew. And then he finally come into his own, you know, and he's perfect for marketing. Like, he's nice. Like, he's a nice person that you can put in front. He can actually talk to someone without being a total retard. Yeah. You know, he's not out of control in any way, shape or form. And then he's like the, I don't know, like the Bieber of wakeboarding.
He kind of is, man.
He's good looking. The girl, like, I mean, the fact that Liquid Force put a pro model of his out in like a girls' colors, and it outsold all of the girls' models across the board of companies, like girls lost their jobs over that because because Harley's like limited edition model was pink and just outsold every girl's model together, and the companies are just like, well, we don't need you guys. See you later. I mean,
it's such a like the wakeboard industry is just such like niche. It couldn't be any more niche. You know what I mean? It's just like,
unless you're in the base jump industry now. I think it's funny because
I feel like more people know about base jumping though than wakeboarding. The reason why your industry is so niche is because people are too scared to do it. Or people die doing it when they suck.
People do love to watch it.
Dude, you name a person that doesn't know what base jumping is.
Yeah, true.
But like
everybody's like, the squirrel suit. The squirrel suit? Yeah. I love the squirrel suit. That shit's awesome.
How hard is that? Is that like a totally different animal altogether?
It is. It's like you learn to base jump by yourself, and there's so much involved in that. And then there's like putting a wingsuit on as well. It's like, I mean, you're basically putting like in our circles, you know, like we joke between us, like, you know, like you're basically wearing a body bag or this like sleeping bag of death. like there's like funny like Black Death jokes that like kind of go on, but it's like your arms and legs are now not free to use because you're inside what essentially is a like sleeping bag. You're like zipped up. So you're like in a straight jacket with a parachute on the back that you have to still reach and deploy.
How does the process work of deploying the...
So it's still like...
is it the same? So you can still like grab your...
So you have what's called a pilot chute, which is a little baby parachute. Yeah. And you put that out and it catches wind and it pulls two pins, and then the container opens up and the parachute comes out. So that is the same. But instead of falling on a vertical sense, you're actually flying in a horizontal sense. And you have to slow down. So these wingsuits that we have now, you can speed up and you can actually create an arc where you can actually go up. So you actually like gain elevation as you slow up at the top of that. Then you put the parachute out, so it doesn't come out too hard, you know. Otherwise, it's like having a car accident. You're like, fuck. You're like, I'm already short. Now I'm going to be an inch shorter, like from just like hard openings. Like,
so what speed are you hitting in those bad boys?
You can fly anywhere as slow as like 60 miles an hour. Kind of like super slow. But it's pretty slow. I mean, a guy landed one in a set of boxers.
And a what?
And a set of like this guy landed a wingsuit, no parachute. Put a like stunt boxes that you jump into.
Yeah.
Put a whole field of boxes out and came in and slowed right down, then into the boxes.
That's heavy.
That's super heavy.
How many people wingsuit in the world would you reckon?
Oh, I don't know.
Like regularly wingsuit.
As in wingsuit in a skydive scenario or wingsuit base
wingsuit.
Fuck, there can't be more than 1,000. Can't be more than 1,000.
That's a pretty crazy low number when you consider the Earth's population.
Yeah, when you consider like Yeah,
there's like 7 billion people and under 1,000 of them wingsuit.
But I mean, it's gained massive popularity. And it's like really revamped. Like skydiving goes through, like every sport goes through like peaks and plateaus. Like one of the biggest peaks that skydiving had in terms of new people wanting to learn to skydive was from, I shit you not, from the movie Point Break.
No shit.
Everybody watched Point Break and was like, that's so fucking badass.
Really?
I want to skydive. And all of a sudden, all these new people wanted and it like boosted numbers for a while. And then the wingsuits came along. People were like, oh my God, I have to do that. Like even if you just wingsuit skydive and never wingsuit base jump, like wingsuit skydiving is amazing. Yeah. And it's fun and it's obviously much less dangerous because you're in a skydiving scenario, not a base jumping scenario. But it's pretty cool that people can now like essentially learn to fly like a bird around the sky.
Yeah, it's like
I have dreams all the time. Like literally, I dream all the time of wingsuit base jumping.
But because I guess you know the feeling too.
Yeah,
you know
but the same feeling that the feeling that you would get in bed in a dream of flying is the exact same feeling that you would get. Right. So exactly like identical.
I don't really remembered. I feel like I don't dream that much now though. I don't know why.
I dream so much.
Yeah, like I used to.
I always find the only time I don't dream is if I'm like having a shit time in my life. Yeah, and then I just like kind of sleep dead. But like if there's lots of stuff going on. But for the most part, I like have really lucid dreams. Like Kayla is the same. My wife, she's like, really? We both dream a lot. Quite often we'll wake up in the morning and we're both like, the first thing will be like, what'd you dream about?
No shit.
What went on? Or I'll be like, wake up and I'll be like super excited. Like, oh my God, you never believe. Like I actually go to places in my dreams sometimes that my brain has made up that's part real place and part real place that wasn't quite perfect, but if it had these things that it would be perfect. Yeah. So then my brain just makes it up to be like the perfect place. Like, oh, there's this mountain and there's this spot that is so perfect, like to jump from. And then now I go back there in my dream. I don't purposely mean to, but I'll wake up and I'll be like, I went to that place that I've been to before and did some jumps or whatever. And there was like different parts of the dream, or I dream of surfing or like whatever's going on in my brain. Sometimes I just watch something before bed. And then
that'll throw you kind of into that space.
And then that'll throw me into that space. Yeah.
Dude, I kind of almost have the opposite thing.
Have another one of those.
Yeah, I might grab another beer too.
We should drink them before they get cold.
Yeah, true. Yeah, dog.
Thank you. Here, grab that.
Thanks, mate. Cheers, Rick. I almost have like the opposite thing. So when I was a kid and in school, I had like full blown insomnia. Yeah. So I just
couldn't sleep.
Like bad, like 1 hour a night for 10 years. And I was just like, it was
parents feeding you too much Ritalin.
No, it was just like, I think there was a stage of that, but it didn't last long. But there was just this, I hated school so much that I just was freaked.
Just
like,
wigged
it
out.
Just fucked me. Like I fully hated going there so bad. And like, man, you asked my mum, like my mum said that about year 10, I figured it out. Yeah. And I was just like, whatever. I got a couple more years and
all of a sudden you finally like, okay, well, we've come this far.
Yeah, dude, for real though. Like it was just everything about it. Like every single thing about school, like fucked me.
Did you get picked on or?
Yeah, got picked on, was like hated teachers, got super bored in class. Like I read The Hobbit in grade 2. Like literally there's other kids that could, I think it was grade 3. Yeah. There was kids that couldn't even read and I was reading The Hobbit. And I got to the point in school where the teachers would just be like, just sit in the back and read. And then I was like the weird kid. Yeah, because I argued the Bible with because I went to a Catholic school and I fucking argued the Bible with this dude.
This is why we're friends.
Yeah, dude, I swear to God, this is exactly what happened. Like, it was maybe grade 6. So we're making like dinosaur fossils, right? So like, I
feel like I can see where this maybe is even going to go.
Yeah, you know where this is going. So we're like, and when it's like when you're in primary school it's all the same teacher. So like we had all the same teacher, and then we went to St. Joseph's in Cairns, and it was obviously a Catholic school, and then we had a priest. So then Brother Matthew or whatever his name was. So then
wasn't George Pell.
Unfortunately. But so then anyway, we're doing this like massive paper mache fossil deal, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like hyped on these fossils, like pumped. I was full blown nerd. And so yeah, doing the fossil thing, and then we just got our grades back for these fossils, and I was like, this is such and such fossil, and then I was making like these bones, and then just went down the dinosaur rabbit hole. Like I got all the dinosaur books from the library.
This was pre-internet too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I like went to the library and was like getting all this shit from the library, and anyway, so right after get my like A or whatever for the fossil that I created, my write up on like, I was like super into velociraptors, Jurassic Park gen.
Of course.
And so then like the guy comes in, the priest comes in, and he wants to read the book of Genesis. And I was just like, whoa. All right, day 1 is light, day 2 is this, day 3, and then Sunday he chills.
Yeah.
And I was like, where's the dinosaurs? And like was full, like I didn't know how to be a dick at grade 6.
Yeah,
like I was just a confused
it was a
kid.
legitimate question.
Yeah, and then so he's like, oh, dinosaurs are just a theory, and my neck snapped at my teacher, and I just like stared this chick down, and I was just like, theory, huh? I've just fucking spent weeks on this shit, weeks, and this is a theory, and mum worked like 2 minutes away from the thing, right? And so Sister Faye, God bless her soul, she was the headmistress of the school, and I love her to this day. Like nicest lady ever. Not every time, but there's the last few times I've been in Cairns, like I'll see her and say what up, and yeah, so she had mum's number like on her desk, yeah, and she's like, oh, Liz, you need to get down here, and then mum's like, fuck, what's he done now? And like this is the kid that like broke my arm playing football, had it in a cast for 6 weeks, went back to school at lunch, played football, broke my arm again. So this is the level of shit that like school, it was just one thing after another. And then like, so mum walks in. Poor mum. Dude, mum like storms into the classroom. She's like, Jason, shut up. When I'm like yelling at the priest. I was like, well, someone's fucking lying. I was like, it's either you or it's you. And I'm
someone needs to fess up here.
Fess up.
It can't be both of you. You can't both be right.
So then anyway, I ended up getting kicked out of that school. But
it's so good.
But like, dude, so yeah, I just had mad insomnia. Like I just couldn't. So I'd go to bed and I'd read for like hours and hours, and then I'd end up being so tired from reading, I'd just like pass out. Yeah. Didn't want to wake up in the mornings. Was super shitty because I wasn't sleeping. Didn't want to go to school. The cycle repeated. Yeah. And but when I did sleep for like those couple hours, I'd have like crazy lucid dreams to where I didn't feel like I was even asleep, which is like, I guess that's what lucid dreaming is. Like you feel like you're awake. Yeah. So then I just had this cycle of like no sleep, lucid dreams, no sleep, lucid dreams. Like so I just felt like I was never sleeping. And which probably is why I'm so fucking weird now. But then, like,
I certainly don't think you're like the weirdest person that I've met by a long shot. But
thanks,
you have to try a lot harder. But then again, I do like weird.
Yeah, I think we connect on that. But then, dude, I stopped going to school. Bang, out like a light. And I just barely dream now. But I was having like crazy night terrors to where it was like I'd almost like, I've never done psychedelics. Yeah. But I'd imagine that what I was going through would be like a bad trip. Yeah. To where it was like that full paralysis and like, because I even get like, even now, like it's probably happened a couple of times in like the last few years where I've got like, I get like a sound will like trigger the feelings that I'd get through those night terrors and shit.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah, it's full on. And so Travis is coming on, and I know Travis had like bad night terrors.
The first time I went and stayed at Travis's house up in Maryland in 2006, I was up there with Andy Bell and Renner and freaking Cowboy Kenny, all the old school.
Dude, I love Cowboy Kenny. Oh, he's one of the best dudes ever.
Awesome, eh?
He's doing stunt shit now.
Really? Yeah. I haven't seen or heard of him for years.
I saw him like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And I was he's a nice guy.
So I went and did some stuff on one of the original Nitro Circus.
Yeah, I remember.
One of the very first ones.
When OGO had like the jumps, right?
Yeah. You'll like actually catch me at the start of one of Travis's videos running down the street naked, and I got like long curly ass hair just in a pair of runners. Like we they wanted to do this take like 15 times. It's Maryland and it was freezing. I'm just standing
oh,
with like
it was cold,
crew.
was it? It was cold.
Yeah, it was freezing cold. It's freezing cold. Yeah. But yeah, actually Kayla was, when Kayla and I first met.
Because you met like way before you got like together, right?
Yeah, we met in 2005.
That's crazy.
So we met, she actually had that video on DVD. Like back then she had it on DVD and we met, and then later on she was like, made the connection. She's like, wait, that's Jeff running down the road on the video that I have. Like, that's hilarious. But when I first went there, Andy Bell goes to me, hey, if you hear any screaming during the middle of the night, like, it's just Travis has night terrors, so just don't worry about it. Like, he's good. He just like relives some shitty stuff in his dreams that we don't know. Like, so just like, don't get up and call a freaking ambulance or anything.
Yeah,
like,
right.
It's all good. I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'd never had dealt with that or anything before. And he was fine while I was there, so I don't know.
Well, that's what he's coming on next week, and I'll like really, I've never spoke to him about it, but I really want to know, because I've never really met anyone that, and like I know there's different kind of night terrors to where you have like nightmares, and like I think everybody has nightmares, but there was something different to where it was literally like you take like a really bad acid trip or something like, and that's why like I've been scared to do any of that kind of stuff, because like there's just this crazy feeling of like paralysis that comes with it. Yeah. And it's like you can't even move an eyelid, but it's like you feel it. And I remember nights, man, like I'd get up, walk into my parents' room, and it felt like walking in, like just getting out of bed was physically impossible, and like I'd have these dreams, and
you're
like
stuck.
Oh, dude, so gnarly. And then I remember one night going into the room, and I was young, and I was like crying, and I just got in the fetal position and just laid next to mum and dad's bed, and they're like, "You're," I was like, "Just leave me alone," like full on freaking out.
That must have been pretty crazy,
dude,
for them,
gnarly. And especially like when you're a kid, I never knew, like, and then especially when you think like, whoa, what's wrong with me? You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's just like sleep. Like we just don't fucking know. Yeah. Because like who said it? It was like Gandhi or someone like that, one of those OG dudes. Yeah. But they said that like every night you die and get reborn. Yeah. Because essentially, like, where the fuck do you go? And like, what's to say that your dreams, like that feeling, like you're saying, like the feeling of you flying is the same as when you're actually flying. I wonder too, like I'm always really curious about dreams. I like wonder, like I feel like sometimes I can control them, but my dreams I've had some for the most part are really positive, and I just wonder whether they're that way because I'm probably mostly positive in my outlook on life anyways. Yeah. So I feel like my dreams are pretty much that way, but I definitely in the past have had some like terrifying dreams, and they're so real at the time. They're so real. So it's hard to say what triggers those things, but I do dream almost every night. Yeah. See, that's what, so I guess that's what I was kind of getting at with that long ass story is that, now I don't know whether it's just a thing where I like block out my dreams but like, dude, I'm telling you,
let's go skydiving and see what happens.
Dude, maybe that needs to happen. But like I left school, started working, out, and now like I'm a log. Like and it's super rare for me not to fall asleep within like 3 minutes of being on the pillow, and then I just wake up and that space is gone. Yeah. So I went from not sleeping, and then when I did sleep, have these crazy lucid dreams, to then just like, and I remember thinking, was like, holy fuck, like I've figured it out. And I literally remember waking up one day going like, whoa, you just went to sleep. Like that's how gnarly it was back in the day. So I'm super interested to talk to Travis about because I've never done this kicking and screaming and yelling and stuff, because I just get like frozen. Yeah. And it's just like full on like frozen in fear. Yeah. But I've had times where I've like woken up standing up and like, dude,
I used to sleepwalk all the time when I was young.
It's so weird, eh?
All the time. Like obviously I had dreams, and I used to sleepwalk all the time, like all over the house. Like my dad would find me like outside sitting in our boat. Like I'd wake up in the boat, or I'd I went on a hiking trip once when I was probably like 10 or 11 years old, and we did this like 3-day hike through the forest with about 10 or 12 people. And this was like in the time when we like had a tent that didn't even have a floor sewn into it. Like you'd put a tarp down, then you just put the tent pegs around the side.
Yeah.
And we're like deep in the bush, and we're staying next to this kind of swollen river. I remember saying to my dad, man, make sure if I get up to go anywhere at night, like make sure I'm like awake, or make sure you're with me or something. Like I was like super worried about it myself. Went to sleep. And then I guess my dad woke up to me like trying to get out of the tent, like saying, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna pee." And he's like, "Yeah, no, you're coming back to me." Or I think he maybe got up with me or something, and then went back to sleep. And then I actually, in the early hours of the morning, had pulled up the side of the tent and actually creeped out underneath. And I like woke up in the morning with the sun rising, and I was like sitting on the edge of the swollen river, like. Don't know how I was like terrified that I was going to get washed away, and I like woke up where I was like exactly where I didn't want to be. I was like, how did I get here? Like,
dude, you know what's crazy? We used to do tons of like trips into the like north, like Cape York, like far north. Like you'd only be eating what you'd catch fishing. No, like you'd run out of what you like bought, and you'd have to like eat fish.
Yep.
And you'd have clean water and stuff like that. But yeah, just like no, we got more water than food, and you'd eat your fish. And I'd sleep so good, and I used to love.
I think it's because you're out in the fresh air. Oh, that's what I reckon it is.
Yeah, well, there's something, and like no school.
Out,
no school, no like it was full on. But you know what's crazy is I just went to Derby in Tasmania to mountain bike.
Yeah,
and every time I go to Derby, dude, I don't sleep.
Really?
Yeah, like
just the thing with that place.
Yeah, just this weird thing, and it was funny because my uncle Glenn, I was with him, and he's like, oh yeah, but he didn't sleep, and then one of the other boys was like, man, I can never sleep when I'm in Derby. So I was like, weird, and me and my mum are the same. I'm gonna sound like a fucking kook, but like when it's a full moon, we both have a thing where like we get up and I'm like, oh fucking full moon, I couldn't sleep.
I've got a friend in the States. Same thing.
Full moon?
At full moon thing, it's hilarious because like we've just had this full moon, obviously, right?
Dude, exactly.
You know, I love full moons. Big surf, high tides, perfect for base jumping. Like the last week, we did a bunch of base jumps down in Victoria, like and the full moon. Like I love it. Like at night owl can see everything. Everything's good. And I'll every now and again I'll like message. I'll be like, "How's the full moon treating you?" She'll be like, "Can't fucking sleep."
Dude,
like literally like can't sleep. And I'm like, yeah, I'm awake too, but not for the same reason. I'm
by choice.
I can by choice, exactly.
Well, we were just down at Noosa for Alex Heads for the full moon. Yeah. You could have surfed easy.
I'm not going to say where, but I did surf in one of the previous full moons.
Really?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
I'm not going to say where because everybody will go there.
No,
the
that's
next
all
full
good.
Moon. But my brother and I had like a super rad session just recently. Full moon, we waited till about 2:00 in the morning, like crystal clear water. Like there's actually dolphins. My brother was like, "How was that wave?" Like I was surfing along the wave face, and it was like full moon lit up, and then next minute, dolphins like jumping at night, and we're just like, I'm like unicorn moment.
So that's like, how is that different to a dream?
Oh, it's so good.
You know what I mean? Like,
because it's real.
But like, how is that? Like, how is that more real? You know, like because that's like so out of reality that you're like surfing a full moon, crazy waves, dolphin in the wave. Like that is a dream. Yeah, you know. Like
well, it's like a dream coming real, is what it is.
Yeah, it's full on.
It was super cool. I've surfed probably like 4 or 5 full. Quite often when the full moons come, I'm either looking. Every time there's a full moon every month, I'm either looking like, is there surf that I can surf during the full moon, or can I go base jumping? And like for the past months, especially up here on the Gold Coast, windy every full moon, or like cloudy, and I just get devoed. Like I'm like, damn it, like this is a waste of like good full moon.
How are you still like frothing so hard? Like you just haven't got, well, like you barely look like you've aged since I met you, and you're frothing so hard.
You know
still.
What's funny? People like, oh, people meet me and how old are you? And I'll like take a guess. They're like, 27 to 30. Yeah. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you know what I think it is? Like, I try and look after myself, but I wouldn't say that's it, because I'm like a sucker for an energy drink every now and again, and I'm definitely a sucker for beers and a bit of partying.
Yeah.
But I think it's just being focused on fun.
Yeah.
Is like, every day I'm getting up and I'm trying to do like a minimum of a couple of activities and fun, whether it's surfing or riding my bike or stand-up paddleboarding or whatever it may be. I think it's just like not being beat down by life and by working a 9-to-5 job that I hate and having a sense of purpose is honestly is all I can put it down to at this point. But heaps of people say to me, like, I've been out in the sun my whole life and I don't really feel like I've like aged too hard.
No, not at all.
I'm losing a bit of hair, but that cap will fix that.
Yeah, you can deal with that. You've been losing hair for a while.
I have. So you're right. You're right. But
that
was always going to happen. My granddad and my uncle on my mum's side, they were like bald by 21. So the fact that I made it to 30 with some hair left, we're like, yep. Me and my brother are both the same. We're like, you know what? Kelly Slater made bald good. We're good.
Yeah, we're in.
Bald's cool. Jason Statham, Kelly Slater. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a couple good ones.
There's a couple good ones.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it's fucking hard though to make a decision to fun. Like, I'm sure you've had some pretty rough moments in your life where you've kind of dedicating it to fun has definitely has like a dark side. Because I'm a dude that's dedicated my life to doing what I want to do.
Yeah. But
there's a lot of fucking shit that comes with that too at times of just like financial stress.
It's all financial. If it wasn't for financial stuff, it'd be a no-brainer. I would just, you know what, I like talk to some people every now and again of like, if I won lotto, not that I would because I never buy a lotto ticket, but hypothetically, I would just keep doing the same things that I'm already doing now anyways.
You just do more of it.
Yeah, just exactly right. And even during like my career when I did have like a bigger amount of cash flow and even more spare time than I currently have, which is still a good amount of spare time, I would like do my wakeboard season. So like our seasons used to go like, I'd do 32 contests a year and I would spend from May to like October in America. And I would like base out of Florida and do all the pro wakeboard tours, do all the events, the World Cup tours and stuff. And then I would have this 2-month period, like November, December. And I would, first of all, I'd go catch a bit of snowboarding in like Colorado right at the start of the season. And then I would go meet my brother in Hawaii and he was shooting for Red Bull, doing all the Triple Crown surfing events. We'd go spend a month and a half, 2 months like there, just surfing, hanging out, like having the best time. And then I'd come back to Australia January, February, March, like do the contest here. And like, but every time I had a break, I would just fill it with more awesome stuff. And I found that stopped me getting burnt out.
Well, I need to have stuff like, I've got a super obsessive personality and I need to have stuff that I'm like, it's super hard to do. And then I'm like, all right, here we go. And it's like I guess what you said with the parachute thing, like you go back to zero.
Yeah.
And then I almost find like as soon as I'm getting to a point where like I'm getting like really comfortable with something, I'm like,
you're looking for a new challenge.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, let's go back to zero again. Yep. And I sort of, like I was talking about this with Sam, I think I sort of sometimes do the same thing in business a little bit. But it's like, I wonder if it's like I'm scared to succeed because then you've got the pressure of failure. Yep. But when you're a white belt at everything, then it's like there's not that much expected of you. You know what I mean? And like you've got this freedom. There's freedom in being a beginner at stuff. And it's like, I wonder if it's that or if it's that I do like a challenge. But I know I really enjoy going back to that number one fucking starting block, and then you've just got all these people around you that are so much better.
Oh, I love being in the skydive industry right now, and when people from outside the industry like you guys and other people look and they're like, oh man, that guy's kind of badass at doing that stuff now, and he dedicates a lot of time and energy and life to it, and for me, I'm like, every day I'm like, man, I'm such a baby. Yeah. I'm such a baby. Like people be like, oh my God, like how many skydives or how many base jumps have you done? And I'm like, well, done like 2,500 skydives and roughly around almost 500 base jumps. And people are like, oh my God, like mind's blowing. That's amazing. Yeah. And then I hang out with guys and they're like, I've got 3,000 base jumps and like 20,000 skydives. And I'm like, oh man, I got a lot to learn, you know? Yeah. But I love being around those people that have so much experience to give. Like, and that for me, meeting and knowing and learning from those people, they're the ones that make me feel like this can be sustainable and I can do this for the rest of my life. For a long time. And as long as I make smart choices, then we'll be good. Yeah. You know? And that's what both like Kayla and I talk about it all the time, you know, like the last thing I want to do, we've just been married. Last thing I want to do is like exit stage left of the world and leave her like shit, you know, like, so that's a conscious thing on my mind for sure.
Yeah, that's got to be a heavy one to navigate in a way, because there's this analogy that I can't remember where I got it from, but it's like I think like there's a thing that goes on with people, and you see it in like couples all the time, right? Where you'll get a couple and it's almost like a girl and guy, like it's not related to either sex, but it's like, oh, you want to go and spend your time doing that, and then it almost like their angle is that it devalues the time with them, or like, oh, so it's like you're making a choice of like, oh, so you'd rather be doing that than hanging out with me, and then it becomes this like, I guess that's a kind of an ego thing as well.
Yeah, totally. That's a like codependent and independent thing too. I think like lots of people get together and they become like a couple, a thing and together, and they don't like, you still need to, like Kayla and I talk about this also, is like you still need to have your own things. Like when we first met, we were both independent people, and I like these things and you like those things. We had this set of group of friends and you had this group of friends, and there's no reason that you should give up those things, even though we now have this life together. Like I wouldn't want to stop her from doing or achieving anything. Like if she comes, like, and she knows that she knows that she has the support. Like if I said to her, like, because people always like, oh, do you skydive too? She's like, hell no. She's like, I'll come and jump tandems with him every now and again. She's like, I see him base jump all the time, but she's like, that's just not my thing. And she knows if she one day woke up and was like, I want to skydive, she'd have the best people in the world around her to help her make that dream happen. But in the same sense, if she wants to start a business doing whatever, or she wants to get into a certain something, she knows that she'll have that support from me, and I don't need to be specifically involved in it. I can just give her, I can be like, I'm like, if you want to go do that, go do it. Don't let me hold you back. And in the same sense, I find like, don't hold me back from my dreams.
Yeah,
also.
well, I think like that analogy thing that someone said, I can't remember who it was, or might have read it or whatever, but it's like you pour in a champagne, you know, there's those champagne
chandeliers,
chandelier thing. It's like, so you're the cup at the top, and then if you take that away, then it's like, so that's you, and then that's all your family, friends, and you're trying to fill all these people up. But if you don't fill up your cup first, if your cup stays empty, no one else gets full. And I think that people get caught in this situation where and I think in like relationships where it's like don't go mountain biking, don't skydive, don't do this, spend time with me. But it's like that time isn't the real time now. Because like that cup's not full now.
You've taken away from
like,
over here.
You haven't filled
and then
this
that person's going to be resentful about those other things.
Yeah, and it's like this cup has to be full for that champagne shower thing to work. And I think, a lot of people just kind of get in that. And then when you find you've found meaning in this base jump thing, you've found something in there that you're not getting from another place. And if you could get it from another place, that's where you'd go.
Yeah, totally.
Like it's path of least resistance. We're always going to be wide to that. So it's like, I think that would be a hard thing for you to balance, because it's like, here's this thing that fills me up, but I could die. And it's like, and then you've got the responsibility of then what that leaves. So it's like it'd have to be this balancing act of like, all right, so do I fill up the cup so I've got something to give to everybody else, but I risk not being around for other people, or do I not fill up the cup and just be around? You know what I mean? Like that's a hard balance.
Totally. Even I mean, I will say that in every friend in the friends that I have lost to the sport, everyone like definitely like it chips at my soul a bit, as in terms of like, I knew coming into the sport that shit would hit the fan sooner or later, and I would be involved in some way or another in some shit that I don't want to see. But I like feel like I was mentally prepared, and I'm the type of person that can and has and will handle that, and not many people are built like that. If that makes sense. Like
you can rationalize what they were doing in a way.
I mean, I've been on a jump where there's been two of us jump and only one of us walked away, kind of a thing. And then I've had to deal with the fallout of being on the national news for illegally base jumping. I had to deal with, having to talk to that person's family, and I've had to, you see the pain and the grieving and all the things. But I knew when I got into this that that's a choice that you make. On the other side, the joy and the camaraderie and the friendships and the passion and the adventures and the places that it's taken us, like for me, the risk versus the reward is still enough, or it's still much more than enough for me to like spend or put so much time into it. Whereas, you know, maybe one day it'll get to the point where that changes. Yeah. And at that point I'll be like, that's okay. I'll have probably been to the places that I want to go and achieve the things that I want to do. And maybe I'll get to the point where I'm like, okay, now things change. But I'm only willing to, like my parents, when this said situation happened, oh, you're going to quit now. And then I had a girlfriend previous a few years back that was like, oh, you got to quit. Like, I'm like, I'm not quitting. This is on my terms. Yeah. Like I like have always lived my life that way, on my terms, the way I see things, not by someone else, because that's your life. Like you make your choices. So either you love it and you deal with the choices that I make, or you walk on. And in which case young love got to walk on. You know, like I'm like, I've been thinking about this thing since I was 16 years old, and I've spent a lot of time getting to here. So sorry, but I'm already committed over here. So
I'm in deep.
And then when Kayla and I got together, like when we did finally get together and start dating, it was kind of it was already a prerequisite, you know. It was already written in, like, you know, like I'm a base jumper. This is what I do. And like she'll put her foot down on some stuff. When it like, let's put it this way, I had a rig of a friend of mine borrow it. Like I didn't have a rig at the time, like a base jumping rig, and a good friend of mine, Tom, lent me this rig, a buddy of his. But it was a buddy of his that had passed away from a completely unrelated accident. And I was using the rig for a while, and there was just a couple of like little things that, like, we went to New Zealand and then the rig went missing in some baggage and we didn't get it. And then I did a jump somewhere and landed in a river and like had to cut away ditch a parachute, and it took us like hours to find it in the river. Like I didn't think we were ever going to find it. I was like wigging out that my buddy Tom was like, because he's like, that's my dead friend's parachute, you know? All these like three little things happen, and then Kayla's like, that's enough, you're not jumping that parachute anymore. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like there's just, something's not quite right. Like there's just like little instinctual things.
Vibe's just a weird thing, eh?
Totally. And I know I had no bad vibes at the start. I probably jumped it like 50 times. Used to jump it all the time, but then things started getting little things, and then you start thinking about it, few more little things, and that's the intuition that I really try and like be hyper aware of with all my base jumping stuff. Like often I go and do jumps in places by myself, solo. I love the solo aspect. I love going somewhere in the middle of the night, dead of night. Nobody's there to motivate me but myself. Like I'm like, there's no ego. Like I'm standing somewhere and I'm like, there's nothing to prove. It's in the dark. There's no cameras. Like I'm only here because only I wanted to do this. And I've often had times where I might be climbing a tower or something, and I've got like good Jeff and bad Jeff here sitting on my shoulder, and one's going, yeah, let's go, let's rage. And the other one's like, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, how did we get here? Like,
don't kill us.
This is terrifying. Like, you know, like this is crazy. What are you doing? Like, how are you? Everybody else is asleep at home in their warm bed, all snuggled up with their partner, and I'm just like charging the castle by myself, like in the middle of the night. But then I'll get through that situation, and I'll go somewhere, and then I'll have a really good time. But at the same time, like I was saying, that intuition stuff, Kayla and I talk about it all the time, where if I just get somewhere and everything might be perfect, but I'm just like, something just doesn't feel right. I call it. I have like a kind of a 3-strike rule. Whereas like maybe I nearly have a run-in with a security guard, or something weird happens on the way, or just something doesn't feel right. I like 1, 2, third time I'm out, like every time, like it doesn't matter, small or large. Like, and sometimes I like really question myself, because you've got to tap into, am I just being a pussy? Or is this like a real something that I should be taking note of? And you don't want your ego to overtake you and be like, just don't be a pussy, versus it actually being something. And I've had a time where I've climbed a tower, got up there, called her, because generally, like the way it runs.
So there's good service on cell towers.
Mint,
full bars,
mint as Telstra. Thanks for the towers and the service. I've gotten up somewhere and I'm like, everything's perfect, everything's good, wind's good, looks good, no dramas, and I get up and I'm just like, something just feels off. Fuck it, I'll climb down, come home, I've actually climbed down a tower, gotten home, pulled my gear out, and just like inspected my gear, just as like I'm like, okay, well,
let's see if this feeling is right.
And I like found a packing mistake, and it like potentially wasn't an issue, but potentially could have been an issue. And it's weird that I had an intuition on that jump, and that I pulled it out, and that I found that like that tells me to listen really hard to that intuition.
That's like where I get that chair's fucking terrible.
It's squeaky, isn't it?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Can you hear it through your?
I don't know whether I can hear it through my mic or just through the.
Not to mention I have a hard time sitting still. So
that's all right, mate. You're a base jumper. Yeah, that's where I start to get super deep in like what reality even is. Like, what is this thing that we're all doing here? Because like I've had a time where like I'd spent a like super stressful customs thing, and I was like, like this is fucking shit, and you got expensive cameras and like. Everything's by the book, but it takes one dude, and then like how it goes. It's eggy.
Yeah.
And then like so, I remember coming down the escalator, sussing out the whole thing.
I assume LAX.
LAX, yeah,
of course.
Hundreds of people, and then there's all these security dudes. It's just standard. Like I've been through it 100 times, and then I just like I had a bad feeling of like, oh fuck, I just don't want to do this right now.
Yeah.
Like it vibes.
Yeah.
And then I see this one dude who was like having a laugh with these people. And I was like, out of the probably 40 times I've come into this airport, I've never once seen a dude smile.
Yeah. As a customs agent.
He's the agent. Yeah. And I'm stressing because I've got my expensive cameras and all my hard drives, and it just takes one guy to fuck the whole show.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I see this guy and I'm like, that's my guy.
Yeah.
And you go down the escalators, and then you've got this line for fucking citizens, this line for immigrants, blah, blah, blah. And then you got a 50-50 there, and then you got 8 lanes there, and you got 8 lanes there, and then those 8 lanes split.
Yeah.
So it's like
I used to play customs roulette all the time too. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then so like, but it's the worst feeling I've ever had about like I really want to like I was just tripping.
Yeah.
And then I saw this dude smiling, and then it was like 50-50. Then it was 1 in 16.
Yeah.
And then it was 1 in 2 off of that 1 in 16. And I got the fucking dude that was smiling. And I'm like, man, what game are we playing here? Like the statistical odds of that happening are slim to fucking none.
Yeah.
And then I got that guy, and I just mentioned football season just started. And I was like, damn, Raiders.
And he's like, stamp.
Yeah,
have a
and
good
he
one.
was like, tuk, tuk. And I'm just like tripping, man. Because I'm like I'm fully made that happen. You know what I mean? Like, because you're like, the odds of that being coincidence are just ridiculous. But then you think about like your parachute thing. So it's like you get up, and then you got that 3-strike rule, you get eggy, you come down, you unpack your parachute. It's like, was there really something there, or did you manifest that? That parachute being not packed, like was it confirmation bias?
Yeah.
And it's like that fucks with me, because there's been so many instances in my life.
Well, I get the dreaming thing's one thing. The deja vu thing that I get is also another thing. And to the point where sometimes I've been places, and like you and I might be having a conversation.
You're like, I've done this.
Into the conversation, I'm like, I know how this conversation is going to go. If I say this, the conversation is going to go in this direction. If I say this, it's going to go in this direction. Might not be such a good direction.
Yeah.
And as it's happening, you say the things, and I'm like, yep. No, that's gonna. Yep,
dude, I've had that exact same.
It doesn't
thing.
have. I wish I could tap into it more. It seems super trippy, but I'm like, if you could tap into that all the time, that would be like ultra, like, because you'd have like intuition all the time.
And you have that thing where like you have that moment where you're like, oh shit, because it doesn't happen much, eh?
No,
but
not enough. That's for sure.
And I fully get that, like, and you just get that feeling of like, oh man, if I say this, this will happen.
Let me tell you something. During my wakeboard career, most of the times that I ever won, I knew I was going to win the day I woke, like I'd wake up in the morning and I was like, I got this already. Like, and I know it just like, and I would be able to compete with a certain level of confidence
because you were so sure of the outcome.
Like, I was already sure of the outcome. Yeah, it's like it was really trippy that like
again that to me is like that confirmation bias.
Yeah.
So it's like with that customs dude, I like looked at him and I was like, oh, that's my I'm manifesting that's the thing that needs to happen right now. Yeah. And then your suit is like, oh, that was eggy. There could be something wrong. Yeah. Get down. Oh, there is something wrong.
Or maybe I should just tell you the story about Kayla and I. Kayla and I met in 2005 at the ASR trade show in San Diego. I was wakeboarding for Alpine Stars. They were my clothing label.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah. I loved Alpine Stars. I love those guys. They're awesome. So I was wakeboarding for those guys. It took me years to get on with them. And I negotiated a contract where I got a dirt bike as a part of my contract.
Yeah.
I got to go on the surf team adventures with them. I got to do lots of cool stuff. But we met. And then like a week later we went to the Big Wave Surf Awards together. Like I got in, like I basically was standing on a curbside in the morning after a big night, and her and her girlfriend walk out and they're like, hey, you getting a cab to ASR? And we shed a cab down to ASR. And then I was like, oh my God, who is this like cute little Hawaiian girl? And got her number that day. A week later we went to like the Big Wave Surf Awards, and then like randomly like that year we like met up on the North Shore and stuff as well. But we're like, I said to my brother at the time, I said, oh my gosh, if I could meet this chick in my 30s, I'd probably be like ready to marry her, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm 23. I'm like, I just got on the wakeboard tour. Like, that's not happening.
Yeah. I'll just fuck this up.
Yeah, totally. And that's exactly, I was like, I would for sure screw this up. So anyways, years and years go by, and over that time we both like really liked each other, but we never really dated. Like there was some times where it almost happened, and we kind of like we were almost like, oh, but I was living on the East Coast, she's living on the West Coast, and it just kind of was never the right time where I was dating someone and she wasn't, or vice versa. And then I went on this base jumping trip. Like I started base jumping, went to Moab, went all over the country. We hadn't like really even spoken for a few years, and I was flying back I flew back from like Phoenix into LA, rang her randomly out of the blue because I knew she lived really close to the airport. I was like, hey, are you around? And I was expecting like, oh, she's going to be like, oh, I'm busy, blow me off, whatever. She's like, nah, I'm like, I got $60 left to my name. I'm going back to Australia tonight. I know that I'm gold class, so I know that I can feed my way on the way through. Yeah. So I'm like, I don't really need any money till I get like back in, and I'll be back at mum and dad's after that.
Yeah.
So I meet up with her. She's like, yeah, let's grab some bikes. We'll go down to Hermosa, catch a sunset, like, and then we'll go to this burger joint. I blow the $60 on burger and champagne, basically. Yeah. But we go on this bike ride, and we go on this bike ride, and we're just talking, catching up on life, and that the whole idea to like catch up and see her was always going to be totally platonic. It was more like, oh, we're just friends at this point. Like I didn't even think or delve into it anymore. And we're riding along, and she's like, yeah, so I'm like, what's up with life? What's going on? She's like, oh, I've been seeing this guy in Colorado, but like there's a big gap in terms of travel, and I'm just kind of getting a weird vibe from it. And she's like, yeah, I think I'm gonna call it quits on that one. And I'm just like, light bulb,
bing,
bing, yeah, like full light bulb moment. I'm like, no way, I've got insider information. She's gonna be single soon. Like, this is amazing. And I'm like, I'm 32. I said to myself all those years ago, like if I could meet her in my 30s and we hadn't connected for a while, that I would be totally into this. And I like literally, we had an awesome night that night. I flew home to Australia, and then like for the next 6 months, I was just like a pest. Like Skype, message, come to Australia, like it'd be amazing. Like all these things. And her best friend Danny is from South Bay, is living down in Sydney, and she'd never been out here. So she was like, well, I could come down at Christmas time and see Jeff, and if it's shit, I can just like
go there.
Just hit the eject button and go hang out in Sydney.
Yeah. Pineapples.
Exactly. And she comes down, and we meet in the airport, and I was like probably like more nervous than I've ever been. Like I was like, oh my God, this chick's coming down. And I like, normally I'm like super confident. I'd never be like that, We came down, we had like the best week ever, and I was like, I'll drive you to Sydney. So then we drive to Sydney, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go base jump in the Blue Mountains with all these guys. you guys do your thing. Went to the Blue Mountains for like a day, and then like went down, actually picked the girls up, and I'm like, you guys want to come camping in the Blue Mountains? Took them all up.
Watch me jump off some crazy shit.
Oh, like me and like 30 guys. They were like, this is so rad. Like actually our roommate Mel, who lives with us now, used to live in Sydney. She also came on that trip. With like all randomly came together, and then after that we were like, let's do this. She went back to the States, and I actually sold everything that I had here, my dirt bike, everything, to get back up to the States. And then we like started dating, and we like started being full on after that.
That's heavy, eh?
And then now we got married.
Which is very recent.
Very recent, a month.
Now you're part Hawaiian.
Yeah.
And so are you guys planning on staying here, or what do you reckon?
We have so many options.
Yeah, true.
We have so many options. It's we could go back to Hawaii. We could go back to California.
Hawaii'd be so terrible. Like, just go there and surf. Because is she from Kauai?
She's from Hawaii. She is from Oahu. She's from the east side, from Kailua.
Yeah.
But we're tossing up New Zealand, actually.
Really?
We've been here for 2 years. Base jumping is obviously illegal, which is a real pain in my ass because I like to base jump a lot. Whereas if I go back to New Zealand into the mountains...
Dude, tell people about... I wish this was like more of a thing, because... New Zealand just has their whole public lands deal figured out, right?
Oh my gosh,
you can do whatever the fuck you want in a national park.
Well, like, other than bring a dog, because we have so much native birds, like that's about one of the only things you can't do. But we have like DOC, which is Department of Conservation, and there's so much open mountain range and beautiful bush and areas, and there's lots of they have like DOC huts, which they have like walking. You can go on few day hikes, and there'll be huts within the bush area that you can go stay in for free or for like $10 a night, and it has all the basic amenities. You carry what you need, so you can do dirt bike trips. You can do, like, New Zealand is the epitome of adventure. You know, and that's why for me, like, I work for Skydive Australia. They own some drop zones in New Zealand. It's one specifically in Wanaka, and we've been like, well, maybe we'll go to Wanaka and kind of see how it goes. Like, we can always, here's the thing, we can always come back. You always come back, yeah. Like, when I lived in Florida, I never thought, like, I was like, this is it, this is wakeboarding, this is the Mecca, I'll never go anywhere else. And then I like took a punt, moved to LA, and I was like, holy crap, like I met a whole new bunch of people. Got to do a lot of stuff with like Fuel TV, and opened up a lot of like doing this stuff with Robbie Madison and On the Pipe project, and all sorts of other projects. And then so now I'm of the same thing. I'm like, we're here, we can always come back. Like, we could go there, we could be like, yeah, nah, that's like not our thing. So we could just come back, or we could just come back and be like, yeah, neither of them are our thing, let's go back to America.
Somewhere else.
We've got heaps of options, and I like that. It's
funny too, like when you haven't moved anywhere, moving is like the biggest thing you can ever do. Or if you've moved once, you know what I mean? Or like if you've moved twice.
I've been moving every year my whole life since I was 18. And like if I'd like the house we're in right now, we've been in for 2 years. We're on our second year lease, and it's about
to blowing your mind.
I love it. I love the fact that we have like a beautiful house, and like and it's in such a great location, and I can have a garage with all my toys. Because before I used to have two houses. I'd have like one in America and one here, but I'd have to have like everything as like a half, you know, because I have two TVs and two this, two that, whatever. And so it's like never like one of the best. It was like two of the medium. Whereas like now it has been really nice to be like super settled, and we have like a great, like this is myself, Kayla, and then our other roommate Mel, and we have like a great like dynamic in the house. We're all like, we all love to surf, we all love to adventure, and like go forward drive and go camp and go whatever. So like it will suck when that comes to an end, like, and it's like everything.
But again, like, you know, it's just right there again.
That's exactly right. I know if I go somewhere and I'm like, either it will open rad new opportunities, which I imagine it will anyways, because I'm always optimistic about that kind of stuff.
And it's like had a track record of actually happening like that.
yeah, that's exactly right. It has had a track record.
It's funny, like when you, like we'll probably go for a holiday to the States, and then like my mate's like, oh, have you booked your flights yet? No.
Yeah,
I'll probably book them the day before I go.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But people that don't do that get wig out about that kind of stuff.
And there's like, oh, what's the plan? You're like, the plan is to not have a plan. And then they're like, oh, that'd stress me out. I was like, well, it stressed me out the first 3 times. And then after it just keeps working out, then it just doesn't stress you out anymore. It's not that bad. Yeah, like, oh, everyone should do this. Well, but it's hard to let that go, like that fear of the unknown. Because I mean, I will say I've got caught out and fucked over.
Oh, like, me too.
You know what I mean?
And the only thing it fucks is your wallet.
Yeah, and then like, it really, just makes you like, grumpy for like 2 hours.
Like, you're like, damn it, I screwed up. Like, this is going to cost me, but whatever, we get through it. But no, like, I never thought I'd move back to New Zealand, to be honest. I never thought, I could go there and I could do something that I would love and potentially make enough money doing what I love. And then with the opportunities with skydiving, I'm like, that those are there if I want them. And to be able to like potentially live in the mountains and wingsuit base jump legally every day, is something, while I'm like still super fit and can do this. I feel like I'm in like a prime
while
moment.
You've still got the Philosopher's Stone just like hanging in your pocket there. I don't know if you get the Harry Potter reference, but that's the immortality. Like the dude that has that and just never fucking grows up.
Yeah. Like Peter Pan over here.
Yeah, well, that's just chilling.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So anyway, we'll go. I know my years of like, I know, like, I've gotten married. Everybody's like, oh, when are you going to have kids? When are you going to have kids? And we're kind of like, whoa, we still want to travel and do some other fun things.
Just do it with a kid.
But I know it's looming on the horizon. So I'm like, well, let's do some fun stuff and see where we go. And then let's find I've got projects that I want to set up here in Australia. And you know, as a potential like businesses down the line. So I know, well, and you know, my family lives here, so it'll always be.
This is like always
going to be a home. New Zealand's always been home. Hawaii always feels like home, and so does California. So for me, like, someone always is like, "Oh, where are you at?" I'm like, "I'm home. Could be anywhere."
Yeah, home is just where your mates are.
That's exactly. Yeah. Well, I got mates all around the world, so home is pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
I feel like I could go to almost any country in the world and like have access to a boat, a car, maybe a helicopter sometimes. Like, you know, like I know enough people that
Gypsy tales, son.
I know enough people and I love it. I love the traveling.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think that's why we've been such good mates too, because it's very relatable to like that modern gypsy lifestyle of just like,
but I want to be like the dirtbag gypsy, like the, you know, like the rock climbers, like like that have just like not a person.
Yeah.
I do like a few of the finer things in life.
Refined gypsy, a modern gypsy.
Yeah, like Ford F-250, some dirt bikes, but you know, like a toy hauler.
My problem is all my toys are spread out.
Yeah.
So I got like, I'm playing, like I've got kind of that same thing. Like I got shit in storage in America, and it's like I got 4 surfboards in storage and like my favorite set of golf clubs.
I've got sets of moto gear in 3 countries, like just waiting.
Yeah, like, and that same thing. I got all this moto gear sitting in storage, and then I'm like borrowing everybody's shit here, and everyone's like, "Oh, fucking gypsy!" And I'm like, "Dude, I have shit. It's just not in this country. It's just not right here. It's right in storage. It's locked away."
I swear I'd use my own stuff if I had it.
Oh, and then like surfing on the weekend when we went up to Alex Heads, it was pumping, and I don't have my surfboard. My surfboard's in California, so it's like I don't have access to all the shit I want.
Well, next time you need surfboards, just let me know, because I've got a whole garage full.
I might this weekend, because we're supposed to get waves, eh?
Yeah, I think so. So I've just been, I had this super cool little setup where Kayla and I brought Kayla a stand-up paddleboard a while ago. We brought it for her birthday, and we took it down to the pass, and I've been like taking her surfing tandem on it.
Oh yeah.
Put a post up on Instagram, and anyways, I get a call like a while later.
Oh, you're on an ad now.
Get a call a while later. The guys from Surfboard Warehouse call me up. They're like, "Hey, we want to do some projects. Like, we want to maybe create some content. Like, we got a bunch of boards and a bunch of different things." And I've been doing some stuff with them for like about a year now.
Really?
We've been doing heaps of cool fun projects with their stand-up paddleboards. We've gone on like surf trips, like design and product development, and I've been super loving it. Like, I'm like, go figure. I like quit my my professional wakeboard career. Always wanted to be a pro surfer. And then like now I'm making money, like working with surfboard, like surfing for these guys and like doing some cool stuff and like loving it. Like,
well, I saw you guys posted like a stand-up paddleboard thing the other day. So I was like,
that was cool. One of them. We've done all sorts of stuff. We went up to the cable park. They wanted to do some kind of off-the-cuff stuff, kind of like Jamie O'Brien-esque. Right?
We got 3 3 minutes left on
3
our
minutes.
drive.
Make it quick. We went up there and they were like, we're going to do like this strength test. Like, do you want to smash some of our boards up on rails on the cable park? So we went out there, took a bunch of boards.
Dude, I saw that. Yeah.
So went out there and I honestly tried to smash some boards. I was actually disappointed.
That you couldn't fuck them up.
That I couldn't fuck them up as much. I did eventually snap one board, but it took I had to come back another day and send it off a kicker a few more times.
Yeah, I saw that. Eventually. I saw you do that.
But yeah, like it's been super fun working with them. It's cool.
Random.
Super random. So
awesome.
I do have a lot of surfboards in my garage if you need some.
Yeah, I might be. But I kind of jacked my knee the other day. And I don't know. I'm not going to the doctor because I'm like, yeah, I could have snapped an ACL and I just don't want to deal with that right now. But I can't go from sit to stand. So
yeah, that's not good.
Not a good sign. And I just heard the biggest pop ever. Just like bang. So I was like, yeah, it's probably something in there's fucked.
I can show you how to figure out whether it's an ACL or not.
Yeah, do you do that?
Easy.
Like,
you do just pull it like from the back and it'll like slide out. The tib fib will slide out very easy.
Well, I was talking to Eddie Casillas.
It's really shit. You see it and you're
Have
like,
you done it?
Fuck yeah. My right knee is flogged. My right knee I've had 3 knee surgeries on.
Yeah, well, I was talking to Eddie Casillas, is like my sports doctor dude. Like if I ever get hurt, he's in California, and I called him. He reckons it's probably more likely that I like dislocated it, and it just went like out and in, like tib fib femur went across and back, and then that's like what the noise was.
Well, that's exactly what happened, and that was my first ACL. So
yeah, but it didn't swell up though.
Yeah, mine never did.
Did it hurt after you did it?
No,
mine hurt like fuck when I did it, but then as soon as I kept going, but I just then I was sitting down here and then I went to get up and I was just like.
So you actually did it standing up.
No, I was on the ground when I did it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you did it standing out of a chair that can't be.
No. So like I did it at the gym and then I was like on the ground and then I got up and I was alright and then I came back here, sat down, stood up, and it was like someone shot my knee again and I'm like fuck. And then
it's not good if it's happened a couple of times.
No, and then I got up in the morning, like yesterday morning, and I forgot about it again. Because again, it doesn't hurt until I'm like sitting down, and then I stood up, and then fucking bang again, like someone shot me in the knee. So anyway, we'll figure that out.
Oh man,
could be a ton of podcasts coming up. Like I can't do anything else.
Well, at least you'll be able to do like some sports science. You'll be able to like talk to some people that have been through that. Oh, you could probably have me in again, and we can talk about my knee.
All right, this is the ACL podcast for Jeff Weatherall. All right, Jeff, we're running out of time.
No worries.
30 seconds to go. We timed this fucking well. Mate, thank you, dude.
Hey,
I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
It's so good to see you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
We need to catch up this weekend.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
See ya.